talk now. Welcome to the Town of Carlisle Board of Selectmen meeting of Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. As usual, I will read the agenda and the time slots. However, we sometimes take things a little out of order depending upon how the meeting is running. 7 p.m. we have community input. 7:15 town accountant, fiscal 19 year-end expense reports. 7:30 a discussion of the storage tank removal, installation of the fire station. At 7:45, 2020 town meeting coordination meeting with the FinCom, long-term caps, and the Municipal Facilities Committee. And the moderator won't be there.
Won't be here tonight.
At 8:45, town government organization policy and bylaw review. At 9:15, town administrator support. 9:25, the select liaison reports. 9:30 minutes, and at 9:35, adjournment. So, Vanessa, you came for public community input. Would you care to join us? I don't think there's a microphone there, so why don't you just come to the table?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's important that the people that are watching can hear you.
Okay, so Vanessa Maroney, Bedford Road. Good evening. Thank you for having me for a moment. So I have just the topic that I wanted to come before you tonight about is Minuteman High School. So our family took advantage of one of their open houses recently and were incredibly impressed with the facility and just everything about it. It was an excellent way that they presented all the programs, and their offerings seem fantastic. So when I was on the board, we went through the exhaustive process of, determining if we should stay or leave the district. Obviously, we voted as a town to leave the district. And I voted for that because I didn't think that fiscally it was a good decision otherwise. But I'm wondering if there are any plans, and this is also, I was sort of hoping I knew FinCom would be here tonight, if somebody is here from FinCom, that just wondering if there are any plans to reevaluate that at some point. It's been a few years. The school has been, it was built on a year ahead of schedule and under budget. Who knew that could happen? And wondering if there are any plans to reevaluate. We're talking about it as a family, as an option for our kids. And, we want to look at all of our, free public options. So that's one question. And I know that, it's, that we have to pay for the transportation for any students who go there, in addition to tuition and also in addition to any special education needs. So I just wonder if, and I guess I would ask for there to eventually be some sort of reevaluation of that cost analysis to possibly rejoin, if that's even possible. It has to be, I imagine. The second question or just observation is, in the past 3 years, they have started a new program. I think it's called Career Exploratory Program or something like that. And it's for kids who are in 6th through 8th grade. And it's 4 nights in March. It's from like 4:15 to 6:15 p.m. And you can choose a bunch of different disciplines to study. The in-district students, at first I thought it was just for in-district students, they send a bus to the schools, to the middle schools, pick up the kids and, provide the transportation. And the cost for that program for 4 nights is $100 for any in-district students. So I wrote to them and asked, if there's space available, what's the possibility of, somebody who's out of district. It turns out you can go if you're out of district. You, of course, have to provide your own transportation. It is $500 for kids who are not in district.
Per student.
$125 a night to go to this. I mean, I just was gobsmacked, and just that's not feasible for our family. And I sort of feel like it is a little bit, I don't know, in terms of, well, you've left the district now. And, but I also wonder if there's any way, where I know that the town pays for students to go to the high school. I have questions about if Minuteman can even, how can they, do that? Charging a different fee for it, but I guess it's because it's not part of the high school program. It's their continuing ed. I don't know. So I have questions about that. And I would love it if Carlisle could pick up the $400, tab for families who, because we're out of district. I don't know what bucket that would come from, and I know you guys are crunching numbers for your budget stuff, and I'm not really seriously asking for that. However, I do think it's something to consider, maybe from a few different angles, that somebody could talk. I don't know how that all happens. It was complicated enough when we went through the Minuteman, process, figuring out how that all was communicated. So anyway, those are my two things, just hoping that there can be more exploration with this great facility, this, brand new programs that we have, and also just kind of feeling a little bit of the sting of, it's a great program, this, 4 nights. It would be really wonderful for kids to be able to take advantage of it, but can't.
Yeah.
So,
I suspect you have to also talk to the school committee, because,
so I talked to Jim O'Shea, and he said this is really because it doesn't fit under the umbrella of the school because it's not in the high school division, so it's kind of out of the realm of.
Yeah.
But I told him that I was probably going to come before you, and he anticipated that there would probably be some communication back, and so I think he's probably expecting some, questions. But I think it's a tricky, it's like which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't really know, but just wanted to raise it because I think it's worth looking into, and I think it's a great opportunity for kids in town. If we can find a way to, to do that. That's all.
great,
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
thanks for coming. Is there anybody else here for community input? Seeing none, maybe we could start ticking off some of the administrators' report.
Oh, sure.
Who's waiting for Luke?
Yes.
Waiting for Luke, okay.
Is he coming?
He didn't tell me he wasn't.
As far as we know.
Yeah, I think so.
Did he
Maybe
text you?
maybe I misread his text. So yesterday he was at Logan on his way to Barcelona.
Oh, so I don't think he'll be here tonight. If yesterday he was on his way to Barcelona.
He's Skyping in.
Maybe it's a quick trip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It
Talk
certainly
about
would
jet
be.
lag.
touch down and
Yes.
come back.
All
Okay.
right, so, anyway, let's start
So
with
we
the,
go-
we have 7 minutes to get through a few of these.
Okay, we can,
So, right,
get through some of my
there are
report.
A lot of people coming.
The first item in my report, you'll see, we've attached a communication from the building commissioner. He believes that the new trailer that we have just installed at the DPW requires a license before it can be used. Well, it's in use, but he cited the relevant section of the town bylaw by which he feels that it's required that this board grant a license to anyone who has a trailer, which is defined as something with a chassis and wheels, and the temporary trailer at the DPW fits that definition. We also had an inquiry from Carlisle Kids House for a portable classroom, which would also fit that definition. So if and when they come forward with that proposal, it would require a license from the board. So we have language for the board to grant the license to the DPW, if you would, for use of that temporary facility.
I move that pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, the Board of Selectmen grant a license to the Carlisle DPW for a 10x40 temporary trailer at the DPW facility on Morse Road for the purpose of providing additional office space and sleeping quarters for DPW personnel during snow removal operations.
Second.
And then I will just tell you that this is only the first of a couple of licenses. This is a temporary one. We're gonna design, hopefully, a permanent one, which will be larger and will be coming back. The municipal facilities.
A larger trailer?
A larger trailer.
Oh,
down the road, but it has to be designed and, built for them, so. Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? None? See, that's unanimous.
All right, item number 2 is an informational item, an update on a couple of Recreation Commission issues that the board had asked about last time regarding Spalding Field and the proposed dog park, and I copied a couple of paragraphs from an email from Chairman Drew McMurrow, that they are indeed working on a scope for Spalding Field with a landscape architect, and their intention for the dog park is to apply for a private grant for design at this time, and they anticipate applying next year for a CPA grant to fund a portion of the construction costs. So that's not something that will be necessary in this year's town meeting.
Okay, there's an article in the New York Times this week about how dog parks aren't necessarily great for your dog. Just saying. I'm sure they're great, however, for our soccer fields, because
They
presumably
Get them off the,
they'll get them off the soccer field. But
all right. And then the third item, maybe we ought to save the complete
Yeah, we'll
streets
save that
discussion for when the finance committee is here.
Yeah.
A little later on, and then I have scheduled some upcoming meetings. And I think kind of a brief report, actually, there's one item didn't make it into the report, the master plan committee requested to hang a banner. I always forget if it's Church Street or School Street. It's School Street.
School Street.
School Street.
The church is, and the church.
There you go, there you go. I knew-
Exactly.
And I don't know if we've got the dates specifically yet, Barney, but it's sort of
Oh, that it's gonna
between
go
now
up?
and
Well, thanks
June,
to
isn't
our,
it? And the fire chief's helping out with
yeah,
that.
thanks to our great fire department, it'll go up, it'll be ready next week and it'll go up sometime, probably before the end of the month. And it's to publicize the, 2 community meetings that are coming up. One is March 4th and the other is June 3rd, so it includes both dates on the banner. And if we need to take it down at some point in between, because Old Home Day needs to do something or whatever, we'll manage that.
So what's the starting date?
Of the banner going up?
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of depends on, but by the end of the month, do you think that's fair to say, Chief
Yeah, we
Sorrows?
just, I think we just need dates in order to do
Just
an
to bookend it
approval.
with dates, so.
Oh, I thought we were told that we didn't need a specific date, that it was gonna go up.
Well,
But usually
usually the
board-
we can give authorized dates.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's within
so
that.
can we say the week of something?
Yeah.
Just
Does
say-
that work?
We can start it today if we want.
Yeah.
I think they're talking about the banner, getting the banner maybe next week.
Right, coming back from the
To give
company.
yourself the whole thing, start next week and then whatever you want.
So the week of the
Get up till
17th,
later.
for it to go up, right? This is to go up,
Yeah.
not to come down.
We
Okay, so the
authorize it
week,
The
Beginning
banner should go up.
February
be up
17th.
Between X and Y, and then if
Yeah.
it goes up late, then.
It's
Right.
That's okay.
And so what would be the ending date?
It'll be after the 3rd of June, I take it.
yeah,
Yeah, let's say June
So,
15th.
Say June 15th.
That would get in before Old Home Day too.
sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Or maybe
take it
June,
down.
maybe we should say June 5th, because they're gonna wanna get the Old Home Day banner up.
Ah.
Yeah.
Right? So we would
Okay.
say,
So I move
thank you, Nathan.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the Master Planning Committee to put up a banner at the Town Common beginning February 17th, 2020 and ending June 5th, 2020.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's done. Well, it's almost 7:15. Why don't we invite, let me see, 7:15, town accountant. And for the year and.
So does it feel kind of good to be done with the year? Or,
She's not done with the year.
oh, you're not? Oh, okay. They're good. That's the newbie talking, okay.
It would have been.
Because it's fiscal year, yeah.
The numbers are done. but
Okay.
There's a lot of reporting afterwards.
Uh-huh.
So I still
still have that.
I see.
I'm not done with it. It'd be nice to be all into it. So I gave you reports on where we ended up expense-wise for the year end. Usually we turn back about $400,000. This year it's $250,000, and that's because of the elevator, what we had to encumber for the elevator. So, you know, if you have any questions, it's.
Does anything else stand out?
A question about the total tuitions of the mass schools and the school budget. It's, the original budget was 354,000, and the expenditures is 627.
Yep.
And I was just wondering, was that somebody new that came in? Was that a prepay for the next year?
You know, that's how much, that's including the prepays.
That includes the
That
prepay.
includes the prepays right there, yeah.
Okay, and there's the 255. That, Okay.
I'll point out another thing right
highlighting.
now with the school is their budget gets to be zero at the end. And what they did was helped to pay for the elevator. They used some of their warrant article for building repair, and they used the remainder of their budget, which was about $14,000. So with that, we had about $25,000 extra than we encumbered, and that was good because we got a change order this, of course, of about 20. So the elevator's done, all paid for, and about $3,000 is being returned.
okay.
So,
And can I ask you to just walk us through just this last part, because I wasn't sure what I was really looking at.
which last?
These last, the July, the monthlies, and then there's got fiscal.
Okay, so
19.
you're on the revenue.
This is only, oh, this is all
This is
revenues.
Revenue, so I wanted
Okay.
to tell you how the revenue ended up.
Right,
And
that's-
we're almost $500,000 over, which is a
That's
really
good.
good year. Almost $200,000 due to motor vehicle excise tax, and I think,
27
I mean, an
cents.
increase in collections?
yeah,
They raised the value of
I
my
think they
car.
were a little behind the year before and caught up in last year. So, so motor vehicle was a big impact there. Miscellaneous revenue, there's a little chart there, what all that is. There's 111F money, FEMA money.
Excuse me a second, where's the
Yeah, we're down
miscellaneous?
here.
Down at the
Oh,
bottom.
the last
First page,
page?
no,
Oh,
first
first
page.
page.
Miscellaneous revenue
Ah,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
So those, we never know what we're gonna get from miscellaneous revenue.
Oh.
And so we got $162,000 of that. That will not repeat this year, because at town meeting, at the special town meeting in October, we voted for the 1LF money to go into a special account. So that won't come through with miscellaneous revenue. And
Oh, that's for sorry, 111F is the injured.
injured on
police.
duty,
Yes,
exactly,
okay, on duty,
exactly.
okay, so, but that's not, it comes in, but we don't really see it either because it's a reimbursement and we've already spent it in certain respects, but,
But,
okay.
well, here
I mean,
we had to transfer money into John's
Right,
budget
right,
because of
okay.
it, yeah. And FEMA, that was for the storm 2 years ago in March.
Yeah, that's
And we
right.
got $55,000 in June for that, so.
And where are we getting SRECs from? Do we have solar,
school-
on the school solar
school.
panels?
Yep.
Well, it's better than a poke in the nose.
Yep.
Okay, and a septic loans are money we loan out to individuals?
Loan was a program that the Board of Health did,
Right.
Alan, you remember those? And there's not many out there, but the loan to the Commonwealth is paid already. So anything we collect during the year, we get to bring over to the general fund. And this year, one of the loans was paid off,
So that number will be bigger for this year.
Okay,
The program has
it's all
ended,
good.
correct?
There's only two loans left.
That'll be the end of it when those are,
Yay.
right? I mean, they're not lending any new.
No,
Yep.
right.
it's
The
a
end of the
tough program to do the accounting for.
Okay.
And the only other thing I wanted to tell you, to talk to you about is this year a little. And this year, I'll start with good news, is we got a second distribution of CPA money. I don't know why, but we got $46,550.
So
So-
what does that bring our reimbursement rate
I
up
didn't
to?
do that,
Oh,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay, it's
Yeah,
all right,
I'm
but
sorry, I
We
didn't do
were
that.
at like 22%, right?
Well,
or
it used to
something
be,
like
but then we got like 11, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
so I
Okay,
didn't
well,
do the
It'd be nice
percentage.
to know it eventually, but
Yeah.
it's certainly, if we took that same amount of money and put it in the bank, we'd never get that kind of return. And we're careful about spending our CPA funds so that we don't spend it on anything we wouldn't have spent money on as a town anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's still a good program
so
for us
that was a-
to maintain.
A pleasant surprise when we got it. But now I can go to the other side. We do have some transfers we'll have to make either at town meeting or at the end of the year that we know about already. And one is the fraud audit we had to do, that was $15,000. Our vet benefit section will be more because of the group we've joined and another person. Blanket insurance will be over, snow and ice is over now, and an issue with VOCAD. So I'll have those numbers better closer to town meeting and the end, you know, at the end of the year. But those are the places where I see right now some shortfalls.
Have we already started with veteran services officer?
We had a meeting last week, it's gonna be,
Have we started paying?
we've not started paying yet, but we're gonna start this fiscal year, so within a week or two. And that'll involve actually having a veterans agent in town hall, having office hours, 4 hours a week, which we haven't had for years. And so it'll be a much better service for our veterans.
What's the, you mentioned a problem with VOCAD, what's the?
After the budget was all done, and in, I think it was August, I started to work for the bus, make sure all the buses were taken care of. Had many hats last summer, and Susan told me, oh, there's an extra person, there's an extra student. So for transportation costs and the new student, it's there's gonna have to be a
So
transfer.
this is a new student in yet another, because we have one at
One at,
Minuteman,
one at Neshoba and 3 at Minuteman.
oh, 3 at Minuteman now, and only 1 in Neshoba.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So
You would-
Vanessa's, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if people are not choosing Neshoba, that might be telling us
quicker,
something.
A lot closer to where I live, but
Yeah.
the other thing is the whole bus thing is
Yeah.
very expensive.
And it would be then,
And so in looking at the school's budget here, you know, there's this, the prepay that they're doing here, right? It just says tuition to mass schools. Is that not money that could be used to cover
Vocational.
vocational ed? It's a mass school, right?
Vocational ed is on the town side. Not on the school side.
and you wonder why. I mean,
And the high
because
school-
it's education.
Yeah, the high school is also on the town side of the budget.
Well,
You
Sorry, I'm
know,
not following that. So
Yeah.
the school doesn't budget for the vocational
no,
education?
in town meeting, there's 3 lines for education. One is the Carlisle Public School, one is VOCAD. No, I guess 2 lines.
Uh-huh.
And VOCAD consists of 2 high schools. Oh, and the high school, 3. I was right the
there's
first.
3.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I was
there are
right the first time.
3. That's right, the high school is on the town
It's
side,
just
it's
the
not
K
in
through 8.
this, the CP.
It's not, right.
School budget, it's a budget all of its own.
So
Yeah,
the Carlisle Public School gets the $10, $12 million, from town meeting, and all the rest is the town budget that
Okay,
I do.
But,
so
okay,
the Carlisle school
Yep.
was kind of under budget by $255,000, right? And they prepaid for next year
Yes,
out of school or out of
this year.
district
placements.
placements. But we need to come up with more money to do voc ed.
Yes.
if you look at it, Nathan, the public goes down to, the total says Carlisle Public, the 11 million,
Uh-huh.
and then the high school, and then the voc ed. It's a separate vote, a separate line item.
Right.
It's called Minuteman Regional, but it's not really Minuteman Regional, right? It's just voc ed.
Well, because
the
now we
Showbiz
have
and
two.
Right.
Now we have
Yes.
two. Yeah.
So, and I guess, well, I don't know that you're the one that's gonna answer this question, but if we were to reopen this discussion about rejoining Minuteman, then could we, well, we don't know why the one kid is going to Neshoba. If it's a program that's not available at Minuteman, or they just decided they liked it better, or whatever, because that costs us extra if we, and it's who directs these kids, or who has any chance to,
Who counsels them?
who counsels
I
them?
would say it's the superintendent and the guidance
The guidance
counselor.
department.
The
Yeah.
guidance
Yeah.
counselors.
And I should know this, because my kid went to
Neshoba.
Minuteman.
It's the guy, I think the guidance counselors at Carlisle Public Schools talk,
Yeah,
they go to CCHS for one night, they get
Yeah.
to shadow if they want to at Minuteman.
yeah.
But once somebody starts, like somebody started in Neshoba, you
No,
got
no,
4
I
years.
understand, I'm just thinking about the new ones coming up.
Yeah.
That if you already have 3 at Minuteman, why we can't, unless there's some compelling reason that regardless of whether we are in that program, in that district or not, that we can't say, but we won't pay your, if you go there, we'll pay your, I guess we can't say we can't pay your transportation.
You can't, yeah.
It's very arcane, all these rules.
So I just have
Yeah.
one more question. Down on the grand totals line, I just want to make sure that I'm reading this right.
Yep.
So our budget was $30,248,588.64.
Where do you see that?
Where?
Column 3 on page 3, or I guess it's column 4.
I don't see
30
that.
million.
Oh, yeah, 32.
30,240,000,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And of that, we spent 29,585,000.
I see 29,673.
Expenditures, fiscal 19 expenditures posted.
Okay,
Yep.
where is that number?
Right beside it. Let me say 29,673. Did I?
I'm sorry.
I don't see it,
I don't see anything.
No,
29,673.
29,585 for, is the total expenditures. Okay, because there's the
This one's dated 2/3/2020.
I just printed mine out today. It should be the same report.
okay,
Can I see yours?
Nathan, okay. The
I was
one you
asking.
read, this 29,580 is expenditures posted, and then there's entries to be posted, and then there's total expenditures, so the total expenditures are 29.
Right, that's what I was going through.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I printed out not the latest version for you guys. I will get you the latest. Mine is 29,673. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
And
Okay,
then
but
way
it's
over on
pretty
the right,
close.
that 285,000 number, whatever it is.
281, 184,
The 281,
net
yeah,
unexpended.
that,
Yeah,
whatever that number is on yours, that is
Is-
our surplus.
it's 255 on mine. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. I didn't do
Okay,
the right
so
one.
we have about-
255 surplus.
Oh, we don't like that, it went down. Can we use this report?
No. So it's
And how does that compare to previous years?
like I said, previous years, it's around 400,000.
Yeah, okay.
So, and this year we
It's
had
because
to
of the
reserve
elevator.
Because of the
yeah,
elevator.
163,000.
Give me
Okay.
back more than I gave you.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you.
got it.
How did I
Okay.
do that? Oh, well.
Well, we get these, we need to have these Thursday, so that's why. We have a different, you had to do it early for us because we
Right.
had to have it by
But
Thursday.
it should have been the same report. I apologize.
Oh,
It should have been.
okay.
I,
Okay,
But-
and this is for June 2019.
yep,
Right, okay.
yes.
Yes.
And, you know, that $500,000 of revenue and the 250 will certainly help free cash. And once we finish working on the audit, we have a few little things we still have to get done, then free cash will be my top priority. Because I think the finance committee would like it.
Now they're shaking their head, they don't care.
The Finance committee would like that number. They've been kind not to ask, so. But that will be the first thing I do.
Thank you.
And I'll send you the,
Okay, great.
Thank you very much, Priscilla.
welcome.
Thank you for everything you've done this year. It's been a
Yes.
Yeah.
tough year.
And
Keep
last year.
everything, and last,
Thanks,
yeah,
thanks for keeping us together.
yes.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. It was a tough year.
Take Sunday
Yeah.
off.
Yes.
Take Sunday off.
Trying not,
Oh, that's
we're really working hard and not bringing work home. That's-
Yeah.
good,
Yeah,
good.
good.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
very much.
Priscilla.
All right, it's 7:30, and we have a discussion of the storage tank removal and installation at the fire station. And I believe this chief and the municipal facilities committee are here.
Come up. There's more chairs over there. You can wheel them over.
I don't wanna get this.
Jerry, you wanna kick it off?
Okay, I guess the purpose of the discussion is to talk about the long-delayed removal of the underground storage tank at the police station that fuels the emergency power generator. The Municipal Facilities Committee feels that a 300-gallon tank is sufficient to run the generator for 5 to 10 days, and that's really all we need to do there. The police chief wants a larger tank, either at the 500-gallon level or the 1,000-gallon level. And the facilities committee doesn't feel that that's necessary.
Did you mean to say the fire chief or?
The fire, did I say police chief?
Yeah.
Yes. So my apologies. So, and that storage tank should have been removed 2 years ago. And so we've been going back and forth. And my hope is that we come out of this meeting with some clear direction on how to proceed so we can move forward with getting that tank out of the ground. The feeling is that if we put in a larger tank, then what we're really doing is setting up a fueling station at at the fire department. And the Board of Selectmen has taken a position previously that the town doesn't need a second fueling station, that the fueling station at the DPW is sufficient to meet town needs.
How big is the current tank that's being removed?
500.
How much is a 500-gallon tank?
Well, the quotes, these quotes are slightly old, but a 300-gallon tank is 11,600. A 500-gallon tank is
My calculation is 16,800,
And the number I have is 19.9 for,
but that includes the fueling.
and a 1,000-gallon tank is 23.4.
And subtracting the fueling was 19,700.
So
I'm looking at this January 30th letter to Steve Bastek, which quotes the 300-gallon tank. Maybe there's something in here that I don't understand. That's 13,125.
I don't,
they're,
as the latest quote we got, we have quotes going back to,
But so the 1,100 number,
Is
the
an old one.
11,000 is old, so this is really a more
It goes
accurate
up.
figure.
That has not been shared with me, so I have not seen that.
Okay,
actually, in the minutes that you were copying.
Thank you.
okay. So each of those estimates has probably gone up some.
and,
Right.
and we,
It goes up.
and we have
Yeah.
estimates from,
Yeah.
from different vendors.
Yeah. Okay.
Pages for it.
Thank you.
So, again, I can, just kind of give the history, I think, a little bit of what the Board of Selectmen, and certainly what I was thinking about when we were talking about removal of the tank at the fire department. Because I think I was very vocal, at the time that, we didn't want to put another large tank in at the fire department. And I was very vocal about that. I don't feel that way now, and I want to explain why. The reason why I was against putting a tank there was we were taking out a tank that we were required to take out. And we already had a tank over at DPW, so why have another tank at the fire department? It was accepted and it was, brought to us that it was going to be a large inconvenience to drive the fire trucks over to get them refueled. And that
At the
it was at
DPW.
the DPW, and that it was kind of a tight place to be able to do that. But we accepted that risk over the risk of having another tank at the fire department. At no point in time was it ever explained to me that we had another tank at the fire department that we were gonna have to be replacing. And so if we're replacing a tank anyway, it seems to me to make sense to replace it with something where the fire trucks and maybe the police cruisers, I don't know. I think they used to fill up at the,
This will be only diesel, so even the fire
so-
department cars would still have to go to DPW.
we would not want them to fill up
With
their
diesel.
cars.
Yeah, they
with
wouldn't get very
diesel.
far.
Right. So that's why I feel a little bit differently about it now than I did then, because for me, it was all, why put another tank in the ground? Well, we already are, I guess it's probably not going in
No,
the
it's
ground.
not going
but-
in the ground.
But, why not add some gallons and make it a pumpable one so that they can fill up the fire trucks right there and not have to deal with the tight quarters over at DPW. That's my thoughts.
Even given the added expense.
Yes.
Well,
It's my understanding, however, that where the new tank is going to be put is not really particularly the right position for fueling for those big fire trucks. They cannot get close to them, to that tank, because it's right up by the street and in front of the building. So it's not an ideal fueling station for them there either.
well,
Chief, do you want to say something about what you think, why you would prefer something different?
Right, so, we're going from a world where we had 2,500 gallons to a world where, what I would propose is 500 to 1,000 gallons. We have to think about disaster preparedness and what happens when we go for a long time. So, one of the things when you have a fuel for the generator is, it doesn't actually, in normal conditions, use that much, but you don't really want to have the fuel sitting there for, 10 years. And so the ability to cycle fuel, you're gonna put a dispenser on it anyway. You just, how much of a mess and however you're gonna do it. The ability to cycle your fuel, so you're killing two birds with one stone. The ability to pump fuel means that you can cycle the fuel through and you don't end up with stale fuel for your generator. So there are those advantages. We have to keep our trucks at 3/4 full. We don't park them at, with a quarter tank of fuel in them. So it is a constant thing that you have to do, right? So you come back from a medical call at 2 a.m. You have to then drop people off, go fill up, come back, do all that. Another piece of it is our trucks are not built for high volume diesel dispensers. And so if you look at all our trucks, they're all black on one side where the diesel fuel comes out. And so it comes out, gets on you, gets on the turnout gear, which isn't, hydrocarbons on turnout gear isn't great, gets on the ground, gets on the trucks. And that's, again, these are just things that when you add them up, make it, not a real smart approach. The other thing that happens is the damage to trucks. And so, you're going to pay your money one way or the other. The additional expense just means you're not spending money on repairing trucks that hit the rocks over at DPW. That's a tight location for the trucks our size. I think doing a 300-gallon tank, I think the town should be given the opportunity, you should be given the opportunity to do something different, because I think one way or another, you're going to end up paying this money. And, when you have a call fire department and what you're trying to do is support them, it seems to me the approach of spending a little bit more now rather than buying a 300 now, having to take that out in a few years and putting in something more appropriate. It just seems like, plus, and really no minuses in the end to doing it right the first time.
But if the goal is to have a fueling station at the fire department, wouldn't it be better to do a real fueling station in a location that's more accessible to the equipment?
I don't know where that location would be. So we don't have space over there. So it depends on what we're going to do. If you decide what we're going to do is to build a public safety facility sometime, that's one thing. But right now, that area behind the station is, if we're going to do any kind of expansion, that's where that's going to happen. So
Where's the tank?
so if you know where the generator, so if you go, north side is the back of the station. So west side is the side that kind of goes downhill. So right next to the building there is the generator. So it would be behind that hill, and then just a little bit further, further away from the station is where the tank would go.
And so are you saying that where the tank is proposed to be, you can get to refuel the fire
The
trucks?
things that we refuel the most often are the ambulances, and it's almost ideal for that. We would refuel a lot of our trucks there just because of having the automotive size nozzles rather than the high flow diesel nozzles, which our trucks aren't made for. We have 2 trucks that can use them, but most of our trucks can't. And so just, in terms of spillage and all, we would probably use it for a lot of the other trucks as well. It's not ideal. There's a little bit of backing involved, but it's much less likely to have damage than at the DPW.
So, because it's not a good argument if you're still going over to the DPW to refuel the trucks. Is your intention, if there was a dispenser there, you would always be filling up there?
Or most of the trucks. I think they're and a part of it depends on what's going on, but for example, engine 6 has a belly tank. So depending on what's going on and where we are, we could continue to fill that at DPW. The ladder truck, you fuel from the back, there's a chance that we might do that there as well. But all the others really we would be refilling at the,
A couple of things, Chief. The ambulances don't have the same problem at the DPW that the bigger trucks do, because they have tighter turning radius.
that's correct.
So the problem there is I take it that the nozzle at the DPW is a high-speed nozzle.
It's, yeah, it's large.
And you just said that 2 of your big trucks, you would continue to fuel at the DPW, if not always, at least.
I mean, I'm just saying, in a,
Okay.
they're not as problematic.
We have talked in the MSC committee, it's not committed yet, but we have talked extensively about improving the DPW site, putting lights, paving it, fixing the turning radius, so that all the vehicles at the DPW, the police station, which fills there now, and the fire station would all benefit from that. We haven't estimated the cost of that. I know when we were first looking at the fire station, when Chief Flannery was still here, we got a rough estimate from the engineers at that time to put what would look like a service station hood on there with new tanks and a variety of other stuff. We were talking $100,000 to $150,000.
This is at the DPW.
Right, but
Yeah.
what we have more in mind is improving the site, not radically changing it, leaving the existing tanks where they are, improving the bollard location, improving the turnouts on both ends, so as you pull through, you have room to maneuver, and paving it. I always suspect that one of the reasons that firemen hate bringing their trucks over there is because it's muddy. They get dirty, and it gets in their hoses and everything else, and it's a big complaint. But the police chief, who was also at first for a new fueling station, dual fuel station at the fire department, has since changed his mind. It's fine. It's actually pretty even distance for him, and his guys fill there with no problem. But rather than provide a solution just for the fire department, we'd rather provide a solution for all the public works and safety, public safety equipment in town. Brian also suggested that there's no downside, perhaps, but let me get to that. What we did offer to the fire department is to make sure, even if we went with a 300-gallon tank, that it would be bored for a fuel dispenser. Make sure that he could add it afterwards. We're not convinced about the need to put a nozzle on it that you can fill a truck with. And Brian has pointed out to us that if you don't have something like that, then you need to use a handheld or hand drop-in pump to churn the oil, because it after a year or so, it starts to get problematic. So I do buy into his argument that a dispenser might be useful. Maybe not right this second, but the Comtank bid you have in front of you quotes the price of the incremental dispenser.
Is that on the second page? That's this,
I think if you.
Somewhere I got $3,700 for the dispenser.
yeah, I saw that.
And then
in
that
here
was
somewhere.
included in the 500 and the 1,000, that, at least the version that I saw.
Yeah.
And so I was taking those out for the numbers that I was giving. So they're apples to apples comparisons.
The dispenser's the same for any of the tanks.
Yes.
Here it is, yeah, 3,700.
So the one we asked to have priced, though, has a bore for it, so that you don't have to go take it, yank it up.
When we were talking about this with Brian and then amongst ourselves, we weren't against the idea of the dispenser, we just didn't want to pay for it. There's some bridge there between facility and operations that we never got across it. And at the time, Brian said, okay, I'll pay for, you guys install the tank for me, I'll put the dispenser on. And I think we went away, that was the kind of last point that we agreed on. It got a little choppier after that. But there is some downside to having a fueling station there. That might be an ideal location for the ambulances to swing into and fill up, but it's also on a pretty steep slope. Any spills are gonna go downhill. This is still not even at the 300-gallon level, been cleared with the Conservation Committee. They, as you might expect, were not very happy when we pulled the last tanks out, and there was remediation needed to the tune of about $70,000. And I don't think they're gonna be happy with anything more than a minimum size tank that you can get away with at the fire station. I still have to ask them.
But nobody's explored that with the conscom.
No, because we haven't agreed to date on what's gonna go in there, so we couldn't go and present to them and make that argument.
So it seems to me like then the question isn't, should there be a dispenser on this tank? Because you've just said that you'd be fine with that. It's more of who's paying
size.
for it.
Right, and
So
I'm,
the question is more, is it a 300-gallon tank or a 500-gallon tank?
yeah, and I am more worried about the capacity question, because that just means more opportunity for liability. And we aren't that good at that, as demonstrated by the fact because the paperwork wasn't correct for the existing tanks that we took out, we lost the ability to dip into the Mass DEP remediation fund. It's an insurance fund which we pay into for every gallon of gas that goes in the fire station. That paperwork was never finished correctly. And so instead of being able to go to the state for that $70,000 worth of remediation, it landed on the town. The underground storage tank, which you never were made aware of, which I learned about in September of 18. It's been in the paper a couple times. That tank has never been registered with the state. It's completely out of compliance. If there's remediation underneath that tank that's needed, that's gonna be on us as well, because it was never documented. And that just leaves me wary of giving them another big tank, where we, that liability is always out there. And I did, however, in talking with Brian early on in this process, I pointed out to him that, you drive by the other fire departments around here, and I stopped and looked at them. I stopped and chatted with some of the other fire departments and asked them, well, what do you guys do? I'm thinking best practices. What do all the other fire departments do? So immediately surrounding Carlisle, immediately surrounding towns, none of them have on-site fueling. They all have generators. None of them have on-site fueling. I don't know how they treat the gelling of the diesel fuel in the generators. They all fuel at the DPW. Some have 2 or 3 different stations that all fuel at the DPW. And when I talked to Brian about this, he made the point, which I thought was valid, that he has a call fire department. So it's not quite the same. You don't have the same depth. You don't have the same number of truck drivers in particular. It's always an issue. And I'm like, okay. And I let that sit for a long time, but then I'm like, wait a second. There are other call fire departments in Massachusetts. Let me find out what they do. So within a 30-mile radius of Carlisle, there are 8 or 9 call fire departments in towns ranging from 4,000 to 12,000 or 14,000 people. When you get above that size, you tend to grow out of it. So if Carlisle ever gets there, that's where I expect we're going to go. And I called them all, and they universally but one do not have fueling on site. They have a variety of different remedies. The predominant one is they fuel at the DPW because that's where all the DPW trucks can go, and usually it's somewhere near the police station. And the one that did have an on-site fueling station, Granville, I think has a 500-gallon diesel tank just for the trucks. I wasn't able to talk to the fire chief there, but the neighboring town fire chief, or whoever answered the phone, was familiar, and he said they had problems with that, both in managing it, keeping it full, and some other quote unidentified problems. So I took that away, and I'm like, okay, in terms of just best practices, that's not what people are going to. They are fueling DPW, gas stations. For instance, you cannot get back into Carlisle without going by a gas station. So if the trucks are going out of town, they come back in, they can just stop at a gas station. Though we have I don't know if the gas station has the high-speed
They do.
dispensers. So that,
Global.
we have to figure out a way to do that. They use Wex cards. I don't know if you are familiar with that. It's a fleet fueling credit card, and they're good at pretty much every gas station out there. Massachusetts is a different situation because they have both state gasoline stations up there for municipalities.
You mean New Hampshire?
Sorry, New Hampshire. And there's a legal division between most DPWs and the rest of the town with its own legal entity, and they don't share facilities. And so most of the fire stations up there fuel at either gas stations in town or at a state facility.
How many nozzles do we have in the DPW for the?
Two, one for gas and one for diesel.
Just two, and what would it cost us to install a low-flow diesel nozzle?
I don't know, but I would assume it costs something like the one that we're gonna put on the, proposing to put on the tank at the fire station. If the tanks over there will accept it,
You mean at the DPW?
yeah.
We're kind of
No.
guests there, making them
Pardon?
change what, we're guests there, but making them change how they do things is,
Well, that's,
So what's the,
What's call you a guest there, it's a town.
that's right.
We're all part of the same
We're all-
town. Yeah.
And if there are problems, then we need to know, because you're not a guest there.
Yeah. And I haven't spent a lot of time talking to Gary about the improvements to the filling station there. But I can't imagine he would be against it, because his guys would get lights, his guys would get paving, his guys would get better turning radius, and they run into stuff all the time. You've seen the salt shed or the sides of the truck barn over there, they use it roughly, so it would help them to have that improve, better protection for the tanks and their vehicles and everything else.
We were supposed to take it till 7:45. Steve?
One quick point, Kate, when you asked for the price of an additional fueling station at the DPW, did you mean to change what they have or to add a second?
Just add
Add
a
a
nozzle.
Add another hose.
Add another hose, in which case it would change nothing for the DPW.
Right,
It's an important point to clarify.
right,
They
and
might
it
even
seems
want
to
a
me
low pressure
whatever,
and a high pressure one, who knows?
We don't know.
So, what's the, if there's, so what is the cost differential between the 300 and the 500 gallon apples to apples?
what I am seeing is $5,000 between 300 and 500. $8,000. The differential between 500 and 1,000 is only $3,000. But the
Well-
difference between 300 and 500 is 5,000.
But we don't actually have bids for the 500 or 1,000 that are as recent as this January 2020,
no,
correct?
not anymore.
So we know from when you had the last bid for a 300 gallon tank, it's already gone up 3,000, you said it was 10,000, it's already gone up $3,000, right? If I'm understanding that?
But the differential is probably about the same, right?
Yeah, the differential.
For all of them,
Yeah.
you think? Uh-huh.
Seems to me the issue isn't so much between 300 and 500 gallon tank, it's whether or not you want fueling there or not. And, I mean, in fact, if you're not gonna have fueling there, a smaller tank is probably better because of the
Keeps the fuel
aging of the
polished.
fuel. But if you're gonna fuel there, probably a bigger tank is reasonable, at least somewhat.
And again, the more you fuel, the more your liability.
I understand, yep, that's my primary concern is the fueling issue, not the size of the tank.
Right, well, and I think from the municipal facilities, 300 was clear, it wasn't out of fueling.
Right.
As soon as you got to 500, suddenly it made it more ambiguous.
Yep.
And so, and it didn't seem necessary for keeping the lights on. So.
Yeah, one thing about, I mean, the reason they sized originally at 500 is that once you start having a disaster, your electricity usage goes up considerably. So that's one of the few places in town that we can refill tankers that will refill itself during a power outage. So that pump is a 7 horsepower, 50 gallon a minute pump. it's great, but it, you know, these things take electricity.
Well, the fueling pumps at the DPW are protected by a backup generator when it comes on, so in any town disaster, they'd be on.
I'm talking about water.
The water, refill the tanker
Oh,
trucks.
sorry.
Oh, I misunderstood that too. Okay, you're talking about
You don't
water,
need that kind of-
right?
Put it in a
right.
fuel tank.
Yeah, so the cistern, basically the cistern there, the water pump for that cistern is on that generator. It's the water pump for the station, and
Got it.
that's the only cistern we have that's that way in town.
Right.
So has there ever been a situation where you run out of fuel in that 500-gallon tank?
No, we take care of that. No, we measure it,
So when we
Track of
first looked at this and we're talking with you about it, you suggested that you wanted a 5-day fuel supply in that tank. And when we did our research into this, we both had an engineer we know calculate the number of days that tank would last under average usage. We pulled the electricity bills, we did the math and worked it out, and he came back with an answer of about 10 days. And then we had Mr. Bastick, the facility manager, go back to the manufacturer, CAT, and show him the same utility bills and ask him the same question. And he said, well, what you've done is actually, your usage is so low, you're below the bottom efficient band on the generator. So I would just do it at the bottom efficient band, which is 25% load. So I'm not quite sure the technical terms, but he did his own calculation and said 10 to 11 days. It would
so,
last average
with an
usage.
empty station, I think you're probably accurate.
Well, it's average, so it's whatever you're doing all year long.
Right.
Sometimes empty, sometimes not, sometimes pumping water, sometimes not. On average, you would last 10 days. In an emergency, maybe you're using it twice as much. You've still got your 5 days, which is why we chose that tank. We sized it according to what the need appeared to be.
So it is
And-
8:00.
Are we being asked to make a decision tonight, or this is
We
for
are, because
information?
we have to we are way behind in taking out the tanks.
Got it, I
We're
understand
going to
that.
start
Right.
incurring fines now from the
Right.
state, because that's why we,
Possibly. They have enforcement ability. They
Right,
don't know about it,
right,
quote unquote. No one's told them. But if a neighbor says, oh, you guys are sitting on another underground fuel tank right across the street from my house, so I'm gonna have this again this year, where I get the emergency phone call saying, we're coming to test your water, then the state will be out here in a hurry.
yeah. Well, my comment is that, while I don't know all the ins and outs and may not understand all the technical, comments, it seems to me that, it's, that on balance, we should stick with the one fueling station that we have. And it doesn't seem to me the evidence is there to consider a second fueling station for a town our size and for the needs that you've described. And I do support the idea of trying to improve the ability to get over there and fuel reasonably without banging up your truck or, you know, having more of a turning radius. But I would not support more than a 300-gallon tank at the fire station.
So I would, and the reason why I would is we're gonna have, it sounds to me like we're gonna have to have a dispenser anyway, because we're going to wanna cycle through that gas. So if we're going to do that, I'd rather not be penny wise and pound foolish. You know, I guess I'd like to get the best value out of it, and if having a 500-gallon tank there, I mean, even if they're only filling the ambulances, which are what go the most, I think that is going to make it easier on them, rather than just having this tank there with a dispenser that they can't use. So that's why I would say a 500-gallon with a dispenser.
The dispenser would be, I'm not trying to contradict you, I'm just trying to say that on a smaller tank, the dispenser would be used to make sure the fuel doesn't get stale.
I'm aware of that.
So just to keep it churning.
Yep.
Not to necessarily, I mean, they could execute that by filling vehicles with it on
Yeah.
occasion, then having it refilled, that'd be ideal. But not a constant flow of vehicles through that.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same concern, ideally, what I would prefer is no fueling at the fire station, but that doesn't solve the storage problem of the.
For the
fuel.
generator.
Yeah, and the generator doesn't run enough to cycle enough of that fuel to keep it fresh. And gelling of diesel is an issue. On the other hand, if we went with a 300-gallon tank without fueling and immediately started looking at improving what's going on at DPW, we might solve both problems. And although it doesn't, again, I mean, it doesn't solve the gelling problem with a 300-gallon diesel tank. And I don't know what people do with that. I mean, I know there are stabilized chemicals you can put in and that sort of thing, which extends the life, but
Yeah.
it doesn't extend it forever.
Right, and we do that. What we used to be able to do is pump it out and put it in the other tank, so we could. But
Use it.
then you're talking about, running 55-gallon drums back and forth.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
I guess I feel like basing the decision upon work that we don't know the price of or the priority for other things that we're going to need to be doing for the town. I mean, that project could be off. I think, the current situation is they're pumping at DPW and, I worry about, paving and lighting and changing this, the radius there and everything.
Yeah, you don't have to go that much. You could put it in a low pressure hose
Yes.
and solve that
That's the
problem.
first thing
Yeah.
that you could do.
Yes. I thought you were referring to the lighting and the paving and the,
Well, that's wonderful, but that's, you don't need to do that immediately to solve the
right,
initial.
and we don't know how much it is or when it's coming or
Exactly,
anything like that.
exactly. yeah.
So it's really not a factor.
I'm not proposing
It's not
that.
a factor.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not for you guys, but for me, as a member of the Municipal Facilities Committee, part of our charter is not just to maintain the buildings and properties in town, but to improve them. And the DPW is a big target. There's a lot of wannabe lists there because it's a horrible facility at this point, and it's kind of shameful that the guys that work there have to work in the conditions they do, and that includes something as simple as the fueling station out there.
I mean, I am concerned about the spillage issue with the pumping station there.
So is the Conservation Committee and the wetlands guys and everybody else, that we still have to get this cleared through.
It's a problem, yeah.
So, I'm going to look for a motion for, awarding this contract. Somebody would like to make it.
So, you want the motion to say we support or we approve, the contract submitted by Comtank for a 300-gallon above ground double wall Highland AST tank.
Yes. Board for a pump, but it doesn't include the pump. But anyway, yes, revised
Approval
number
of this.
5, dated January 30th,
Okay.
2020.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve, the contract submitted the proposed contract submitted January 30th, 2020.
Oh, I mean, do we really want to make it specific to that particular bid? I mean, why not just make it for a 300-gallon tank and we'll pursue whatever.
Jerry, sorry, excuse me, but we just had that refreshed, so that is good right now. and
It's
will
good
be
for
2
30
more weeks.
days.
Yeah.
They were
This
the
is-
low
this
bidder
is-
before.
They were the low bidder before. We got refreshed bids for the 300-gallon tank from, we asked for 3, we got 2. The other one was $28,000. So and the third person failed to bid. And so we got 10 to,
So this is what we're left with.
we have to let this
Yeah.
contract, we have to give.
yeah, so we've been through the process, the appropriation.
Several times.
I mean, the bid process.
Bidding process.
And we're there.
Does that answer your question, Jerry?
And it's gonna be bored for the dispenser, so we can revisit that as well, if that becomes
Right.
an issue, yeah.
How much of this bid is to remove the old tank?
No,
That's
Zero.
in this
That's not
bid.
in this bid, this is just for the new tank.
So I've been
It's a separate
talking with the
bid.
engineers steadily at the beginning of 2018. Those quotes were coming in at about $10,000 to $12,000 for the removal. A big chunk of that is the engineering. And I've just recently learned from them that there is, and that of course, I don't know if you remember the disruption from the last removal at the fire station. That took a long time to finally cap off and finish. It was very disruptive for the guys driving their trucks over suboptimal surface for a long time. But the engineers just told me today that the tank, because it was a generator tank and not a fueling station tank, has a slightly different set of parameters, and it will be able to be closed in place. You'll have to drain it, wash it out, bore the bottom of it, take test samples, and then fill it with concrete, a very lightweight and crushable concrete. And so the disruption for the replacement will be small. We'll need a manhole-sized hole right in front of the door to that bay, but a lot better situation than digging a giant hole right in front of his biggest truck.
And if this is voted in favor, what type of coordination? Is this something that Brian is going to manage, or what type of coordination happens between the Municipal Facilities Committee and the fire department?
So we would anticipate letting the contract and making sure Brian sees it and agrees that that's the details in there, regardless of the size, are workable, and getting the engineer in place. And then for the actual implementation, the engineers will provide some oversight. What we asked last time was that the fire department have on-site supervisory powers. So they have guys there that would staff the dig or the installation and then the remediation, whenever there's contractors on site. And they would get to review and comment and approve on any of the paperwork involved every step of the way. Brian has as fire chief, he's got power to issue a permit or not issue a permit for this. I think that's right. They're gonna need a permit to take that tank out that comes from you. And so if he's not happy, he'll hold that permit until the paperwork is or the engineering, the spec, whatever is to his satisfaction. We also probably will have to get CAT involved, because that one moment of changeover, when you switch from the old tank to the new tank, we'd like that to be seamless. And we have not gotten to that point in the conversation with Brian, but there are a bunch of different options there, which we'll let him choose from. How do you want to do this? And,
So the scheduling part of it, is that all Brian's call as to when it's going to happen?
Yes.
What days it's
I
going
mean,
to happen?
the guys are gonna come back, we'll order the tank, they'll come back and say, all right, the tank's here, we're ready to go. Then it turns to Brian, it goes to Brian. Steve would probably ask him and or David or both, when they want it. And he'll drive the schedule, not us or the contractor. Contractor will work, I would guess, directly with Brian at that point to implement the installation of the new tank and the removal of the old one.
But we also wanted to have Steve to have access to the site for oversight when the work
He'll
is
be
being
there, but
done.
if the fire department's there, he'll be a drive-by.
Yeah, well,
The
okay, but-
particular times when we're gonna want Steve there are when the hookups are made and the swap over is made.
Right.
He's got that same skill set, and that's the part that I think everybody's gonna be most concerned about, because when it's installed and then the guys leave, and then we have an emergency, if it doesn't turn on, then we have a problem. So that whole testing cycle, Brian's gonna have to sign off on that as well. We can't do that to his satisfaction. He's gonna have to.
Right.
Have to agree that he's happy with what's there, or it has to be fixed. So we don't intend to drive any of the the safety aspects of the installation or the performance aspects of it.
So there was
Go
a
ahead.
motion.
Well,
Make a
no, it
motion.
wasn't actually made. Got interrupted partway, so I should
All
make
right.
the motion.
That's when I-
No. It was good to clarify. All right, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the contract proposed by Comtank dated January 30th, 2020 to Mr. Steve Bastek to provide an above-ground storage tank, fill in place and installation at 80 Westford Street, Carlisle, Mass.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so there's 3 to, aye and 1 opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Did we run over schedule?
Yes,
A little bit.
half an hour. Yeah, let me see, can we have the FinCom and the long-term caps and actually, the municipal facilities shouldn't leave because you're on this as well for the coordination, talking about proposed operating budget, capital budget, non-union wage adjustment, personnel changes, and the town meeting warrant. We're gonna talk about,
Am I supposed to get a summons or something?
Subpoena?
yes, Tina?
A warrant for your arrest, perhaps?
A warrant for his arrest is closer to it, yes. Okay. Greetings, hi Scott.
Hello.
Time no see.
So Victor's not able to make it tonight, so he asked that I assist in facilitating the discussion. And he was good enough to send me some notes and talking points. Let me just briefly give an update. Since last we met, we sent out the guideline budget in December. We've met a few times since then. For the most part, there have been no changes to the departmental budgets. We haven't really had any specific requests. There's some open items in terms of getting more information, but we haven't had anyone come back to us looking for changes. There are a few changes that we've baked into the guideline. We haven't officially taken positions on these things, but I just wanted to run through those differences. One, and this is something we look at every year, but we're going to increase the baseline DPW snow removal budget. There's reasons that number has been kept low because, and I don't know the details, but once you can't lower that budget amount, so typically we under budget and then we fund it through transfers, but over the years, we are substantially below it every year requiring transfers. So we looked at the numbers and we're bringing it up an additional $35,000, which is still a low number, but it's closer to a baseline so that it's money that
affects your 2.5%, doesn't it? Because your base, if your
No, it's
base
just,
is,
whatever you base the prior year, you have to go the next year. So
Right.
if you did 50,000, if you dropped to 30 and you run a deficit, you're in trouble. So
yeah, okay.
it's been 50
Gotcha.
all along. Now we're gonna do it to 80. We'll
Got
stay at that 80. But the trend is, when you looked at it, is it's been consistent that you've had a year-end transfer or.
Well, a large year-end transfer, and
Large,
so, I think what we want to do, essentially,
Have a
normally
more
we're
accurate
transferring
budget.
around $60,000.
Mhm.
And so we just,
Makes more
enough
sense.
time has
Yeah.
passed that we just want to increase the amount
Yeah.
that's in the budget. It won't affect how much we spend on snow and ice, it'll just make for a lower transfer every year, which is prudent. We're not funding it at a level that we'll still need to do transfers, just not at the amount.
Makes total sense.
Remember last year with the elevator and other transfers, this one reduces our flexibility to deal with the unknown
Yeah.
at the end of the year. But here we know we're gonna need it. So, it seems to make sense to raise it to a reasonable level
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Been-
Be
and
somewhat
every year
accurate.
It's been so unreasonable. You
Yeah.
have to do a transfer now.
I mean, everybody understands it at town meeting, they always know that
And
we.
you still can
we
always
under-
raise or do a transfer, but. it's
Yeah, I know,
gonna
as
be a-
Priscilla said earlier,
Yeah.
you know, haven't had much snow this year, yet we're already over the
We're already
budgeted
over,
amount.
Yeah,
that's right.
number, and we've already over. in 2
I think it's
months,
only
yeah.
60,000 that's budgeted, which,
Yeah.
you know, for the entire.
Those first 2 days of December were tough.
Yeah, yes, they were.
The other item where we're talking about doing an increase of 50,000 is to our annual OPEB contribution. This will warrant more discussion. Last year around, you know, the plan was to reassess our OPEB plan. There's different schools of thought on OPEB, and our new finance director has another view of OPEB versus our neighbors in Concord, how much you should fund, how aggressive you should be with it. Those are still open questions. We're essentially continuing the plan that was set 7 or 8 years ago when we started on this. So lacking solid new information, we're just going to increase it 50,000. So our annual contribution would be 475,000. Some of the other things going on with OPEB are 2 years ago, we approved a trust for OPEB. That has yet to be set up. That was something we discussed. That is going to be set up. The benefit of that, once we do that and that legal designation is done, we expect our liability, which is in the neighborhood of 12 million, to go down substantially. And so once we do that, Kim's going to work with, is it Bartholomew?
Yes.
To look at everything in a new light based on all the changes. Like there's no more ARC, that doesn't exist anymore.
Thank
So
goodness. I mean, the
it's a
state
wrap,
did
it's
raise
a
up for that.
constantly
Yeah.
shifting
It's-
sands in
yeah.
this. So we'll look at it next year and hopefully put in a new plan with all the changes and transitions. We just haven't done that. So that's one change we're making, but we want to continue to contribute to that. We do need to add COLA to the budget, and I don't know where that stands. I know you had received materials from, have you approved of COLA?
Well, the Personnel Board has recommended a 2% COLA.
Right,
to
and
both-
so.
Both of these boards, and you got information in your packet on that.
We
I
did.
believe. I think I sent it to
Yeah,
Victor.
I have the information.
Okay.
Ultimately, what
We
we
haven't-
need is the approved
We
amount.
haven't
Yeah, so.
approved it yet, but I don't
Correct.
think that we would do anything other than that. anyway.
Right.
Well,
So-
I mean, last year we did less than what was approved, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
It's kind
was-
of knowing how it fits in with the overall budget is where,
Yeah.
what drove that.
So so with COLA not included, when you look at the changes, the current guideline, the guideline that we sent out, the operating budget piece was a 1.2% increase over the prior year. That's relative to past years, that's a low percentage increase. A lot of that low increase is driven by the shift in assessment at the high school this year. So we're on the positive side of a lower assessment. So essentially our high school contribution is going down in absolute dollar terms. So where in the previous year, I think it was up $150,000. So that's helping. Overall, the other departments are fairly standard, modest increases. But we are having this one-time allocation shift, which helps us in percentage terms this year. I'm not saying that to say, oh, let's load up on other stuff, but just so you know, a 1.2% increase is not because all departments have gone down. A lot of that is the high school budget. When we add in these things that I just mentioned, and I don't know if that included the 80,000 for OPEB, or for the COLA, but that would bring us up to a 1.7% increase.
And that 80 was with no other changes with any personnel, so if something like that changes, that number changes.
The other things that we're still waiting on, and I was talking to Priscilla about it, free cash is obviously an important input. Priscilla is finalizing that number, and we expect that we'll have a little bit more free cash than in past years. And again, that's not to say we take that and use and spend it, but we'll need to look at what we want to do with that. My personal view is we don't want to go above the amount we did last year. You don't want to become reliant on free cash because you pay for it next year. But given some of the things in the budget, there may be some opportunities with some one-time projects or expenses that we'll look at. We don't know what that number is, but we expect it to be, with the favorable revenues, we expect it to be a little bit more than last year in terms of the free cash we have. In terms of items for discussion and things we wanted to get Board of Selectmen input on. I'm gonna rearrange the order here. Maybe I won't. But I think for us, you know, when we look at the budget, when we look at the list of issues, from an operating budget standpoint, it's a pretty, I'll just call it a quiet year in terms of there's a few staffing requests that is on my list of topics to talk about, but they're fairly, I think most of them are carryover requests from previous years. I think the biggest item for discussion, maybe we can move into facility maintenance, is looking at the warrants. And we have some large warrants, particularly around facility maintenance. And I think, committee members can chime in, I think our concern on these things, and this is not meant as any kind of criticism of the people that sit on the committee, but as a town, we have a lot of projects and a lot of work that needs to be done to bring our buildings up to standard and to maintain them going forward. And we've talked about this need to bring in expertise to the town to assist with this. And, you know, I think originally the facility committee was really an initial oversight committee and working with the TBA architects to get the ball rolling. And I think the view is now it's become very much a working committee with a lot of responsibility, a lot of demands placed on it. And part of the question we have the Board of Selectmen is, what is the vision for facility maintenance in this town going forward? Is the model that we currently have, where we're relying on a volunteer committee to run these projects sustainable?
Absolutely not. It is.
Is it prudent, given the amount of money? And if not, what should we be doing now? Because we have, we've approved a lot of money. We have a lot of money being requested this year, a lot of money going forward. And it's from the budget standpoint, it's probably the biggest financial commitment that we're looking to make. And I think our committee supports the building maintenance, but we need to make sure that we're doing the right projects, that they're costed appropriately, that the facilities and the departments are on board and bought in with these projects so that successfully implementation. And what's the model to get there? Do we continue as we are, or is there something else we do to bring more of a full-time expertise or perspective into the town? I don't know. And
I can just briefly tell you one thing that I've asked Tim to do. I talked to Jim O'Shea, and I've asked him, and for him to talk to Jim and to set up a committee that would be those two, some people from FinCom, somebody from Selectmen, and somebody from probably MFC, to see how we can share resources, combine the full-time facilities manager that they have there with our part-time one. Our part-time one would then report to that guy, and have an allocation of time actually to the town that wouldn't cost more, because I don't think they're necessarily using their guy full-time, or they could possibly spare 5 hours of that guy to help the town side and bring it into a town-wide facilities management thing.
So I think it's always been our long-term goal to have a facilities department that has a staff and a budget. And that department is responsible for doing the maintenance in the various town buildings and planning the maintenance in the various town buildings and managing that whole process. We're certainly not there yet, and exactly when we'll get there, I think is open.
But there is as far as I can tell, there seems to be some interest on the school side to be cooperative and to help.
There is interest. I talked with Jim today, and we're going to meet again next week, particularly around facilities and things like procurement and some of the requirements that bog our guy down, because he's just 19 hours a week and he can't, there's only so much he can get done.
Right.
We're going to meet next week with Rob and with Steve and Jim and I.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's starting.
underway, yeah.
It's starting.
But I think the sentiment on our committee is that we have to get there faster. that it, you know, I mean, much faster.
Okay.
Because there are real issues out there. And yet a lot of money needs to be spent. You know, I think the analogy would be that if, instead of hiring a new finance director, we said, well, our committee will just manage it ourselves. We'll just meet every week and manage the finances.
I can tell you.
I know, I quit. I quit right away.
The facilities committee
Why
has
don't we do
no such sort of ambition.
No,
I
but
can tell-
you're backed into it, you know?
Exactly, and we've been dying for help that's why we were so anxious to get the facilities manager on board. When we did, we realized he wasn't there for half long enough because there's too much work for him to do as well. And yet, we don't want to put a lot of more time or another, staff on payroll. So we were hoping to be able to share some resources that are already in town that maybe are, if not underutilized. I don't think they're underutilized, but I think they're able to be spread a bit anyway.
You have to believe there's some economies of scale.
And yes, right, yes.
And it may well be, we see how that goes for 6 months or a year, and we'll know how much more we need. That's part of the thing. We have to bring on a full-time person now without any clear indication of how we would use that person may not be the best way to go, but this will give us an incremental way to look at it, and we'll get a whole lot better. And we have to look at it hard and keep track of it so that we know exactly what we're
Scott's
doing.
comments were spot on.
Absolutely.
There's enough work for a full-time person.
Yes,
right now.
and
The problem is
bringing
there's
on-
And your
no-
sense of
that's
urgency
another
is also
piece of
spot on.
budget.
It's just that,
And, it's a big commitment from the town.
It's a
Is that
government.
Gonna just stay, that level of work gonna stay going out into the future? We think yes, though the.
And I look at it in terms of how much money was approved last year, how much money, and you look at your plan over the next 3 to 5 years, and then we move into a mode ideally where it's the percentage of building values that is an ongoing maintenance.
yes.
And we need to make sure, whatever the solution is, whether it's additional hours, resource sharing, that, from our committee, we believe in it, we support it, we have to make sure that the projects, the amounts, everything are appropriate. And I think, and we know the challenges of your committee, I mean.
We're still at the point where we're trying to fix the things that have failed.
Right.
We haven't even gotten to the improvement part yet.
But
Everything we're doing
importantly,
is-
we know what the 19 hours are costing us.
Yeah.
We know how much money that has saved us,
Yes.
okay?
It-
And those kinds of dollars and cents are real. And we can, when we do the sharing that we're gonna do,
Yeah.
we can look at that and say, okay, now we know what that trade-off is. So if we go ahead and spend 50, 60, whatever it's gonna be, $70,000 a year for a full-time person, we know what that's gonna return to us in savings in
Actual
building
savings, and
maintenance.
then
Actual savings.
when you look
absolutely.
at the size of the projects,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
it's a high leverage.
Yeah, it's, right now,
With
it
the
seems
financial-
crazy not to do that.
The other piece that feeds into this, and we'll discuss it more as a committee, but last year we talked about the idea of moving the building maintenance out of the departmental budgets and putting it in a centralized maintenance budget, which would then be managed centrally. And there's, a lot of good reasons to do that. But again, I think from our committee standpoint, there's this question of, is there enough resource to actually do that?
Right.
Are we, there's.
It is, as long as there's savings to offset it.
No, I think, you mean, is there physical capacity amongst either our committee or?
Well, that type of thing, I would assume would be a facility manager would then.
Yeah, so right now, no, he doesn't have.
So we
time.
can't,
We can't give them.
so we probably won't do it another year. And again, because we wouldn't do that unless we knew that there was the capacity to manage that money. But these are the issues. This is, well, again, when we look at the warrants, and we'll talk about them in a second, I think it's obviously those maintenance warrants, and looking down the road, the amount of money that as a town, we want to prudently invest in our structures.
On the other hand, as you had pointed out, the last time we had a coordination meeting was maybe we're being short-sighted, not to just go ahead and increase the hours of this guy so he can do the work. I mean, so when do we make that decision? A year from now? I mean, because then we'll just fall further behind, so.
Well, I'll speak for myself, I won't speak, you guys can chime in, but I have real reservations about supporting a warrant article with such a large amount of money attached to it without an additional capacity in place, a full-time capacity in place to augment facilities, to manage it, to make sure that. And so when you look at how much we've approved, how much we're asking for, the additional economies we could benefit from if we brought the maintenance budgets together. My view is that was always the vision of where we wanted to get to
Absolutely.
when we embarked on this. And so to wait another year gives me pause about what we asked the town for this year until we have, so it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, but
Absolutely is, yeah.
it's clearly an area we're gonna be investing a lot of money in as a
As a
town.
committee, we haven't made any, taken any
And-
votes, but I think
We haven't
Scott
either.
reflects the sentiment.
Yeah,
on
well,
the
I would
committee.
say regardless of cooperation and coordination with the schools, Steve's hours have to be increased. Full stop. I mean, because I think
And it might
we'll
be a
need
different-
whatever we can get from the school, plus more from Steve
Well, and I don't know, I don't
in
know
order
what
to do this.
the skill sets, obviously there's a hands-on, maintain, fix things aspect to the job. There's a strategic procurement, vendor, all that other stuff. But so I don't pretend to know even if that lives in one person, but
It can, but I can tell you, Steve is a hands-on kind of guy. He's weaker in the procurement. Rob, who's at the school, is much stronger in the procurement. He could take some of that off of him if we can get that coordination. In the meantime, I think we're looking for other places to have procurement being done in the town offices. Jen's taking a class so that she can do
this is
some
something we
procurement.
can
So that we
discuss
can,
as a committee at the next meeting.
but
which I think
certainly.
We'll do.
So what percentage of the FY '19 municipal facilities allotment was spent? And then where are we on this year's allotment? Am I in the right years, or are we already in
Yes,
21?
yeah.
Fiscal
It doesn't
20.
matter, we know what you're
Budgeting for
talking about.
21. It's more about what money you want to put forward to it and whether it stays there.
Yeah, on the
Well,
other
the
hand,
concern is, are we allocating, I think your concern is, are we allocating money that we can't even
Right.
manage the projects for?
right, I can't
So I'm
spend
just
it.
wondering, historically, are we already doing that?
Well, and I think the other piece is, when we started down this road, the TVA architects was going to be a kind of a backbone of the process. And I think what we found is that the estimates are wildly off.
Yes, I
So
mean,
you're
Further away
essentially,
we get from that report, the less
right,
meaningful that,
so you're essentially
yeah.
backfilling a study like that in addition to.
We are running, I really feel like Alice in Wonderland sometimes. That group is running so fast just to stay in place.
No doubt.
Because, just this Comtac thing went from 11,000 to 13,000, while we were
Sitting here, yeah.
sitting here,
And that's,
And, we were ready to roll months ago when it was still at 10,000, but because of the way the process goes.
and you get into the police station and you realize, you
Well,
find,
and
start lifting the rocks up and
Did you read the article in the New Mosquito about, how now we have 20 lockers instead of 10, and we have, they opened up the third floor, and now we need a new septic, so, when they equip everybody with X-ray vision so that they can see into these old buildings that were,
Is that a new warrant article? Or the extra?
it is, it is.
It should be. But,
And yet, I'm not sure we should spend it on that building. So
Well,
that's the other thing. I have to tell you, the Municipal Facilities Committee spends a lot of time, I don't want to say chasing his tail, twisting itself into pretzel. I don't know what kind of visual you want,
that's plenty.
but they struggle with all of that because they don't want to misspend the money that has been entrusted to them from the town. They promised a scope of work which they can't deliver. Now they're stuck with that. And then they're finding all these other things that they didn't ask for. They don't know,
Pandora's box.
they don't know, and they don't know whether it's worth it. And then there's the the master plan kind of looming out there.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna be soon enough to save the guys from suffocating in that building. And there's gonna be, but, the latest notice we got this morning from the chief is that the state is coming and inspecting, and is gonna probably bring us a whole laundry list of things that
The
he's,
police station?
it's kind of like an OSHA inspection, but of the police.
Yeah.
And we are not going to look good, we're good, and there's not much we can do to that building to make it look
It's a
any better, so we're.
highly complex,
It is,
and it's
and,
an area of the town
There's no
where
quick
we have
fix.
very limited internal.
which is why I wanted them
Which
to
is-
stay at this
Yeah.
meeting, so they could get a little direction, so that they don't have to spin like whirling dervishes all the time. One another, yeah, I've got all kinds of analogies to throw out there.
Well,
Another, let me just
Yeah.
shift gears a little bit. If you find the number, just yell out. But the other thing I just wanted to mention that we've also been talking on, it's a little more, I don't want to say philosophical, but it's, the use of revolving funds, particularly as it relates to justifying new hours. And I think there's two sides of there's reasons it makes sense, and then there's reasons where it's a slippery slope. And I think as a committee, we want to be careful about when we're looking at staffing increases where we can fund it through increased fees or whatever, and basically it becomes a free resource. And I put free in air
Yeah.
quotes, but
Free to the town.
It's,
nothing is ever free. I mean, eventually, as we see, we constantly get requests that where it used to be funded out of a revolving account. Now the revolving account can't support that. So now it's typically at some point down the road, there's an ask for the town to fund it. The second piece is there's obviously, as you know, associated costs with hours, especially with a full-time. So,
Yeah.
and it's, there's a question of equity. Just because a department is one that it has a mechanism or a permitting process, should that department necessarily be able to add more hours? So,
okay, I just want to respond to that, because I do think that's an important question.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you are a permitting board, for instance, and you get a lot of permits, that does cause work.
Increased work.
Increased work, so if you don't charge enough for the permits to cover the amount of work that those permits cause, the town then subsidizes that permitting for the other people. And what we've been trying to make clear to the boards that have permitting work that causes increased work is that they need to charge enough fees to cover the work that those permits cause them to have to do. And if then there are fewer permits being demanded of them, they have to expect that they will have fewer hours. They'll have to lay off somebody, or they'll have to cut their hours back. That it is kind of like a 1-to-1. And so it's not a,
Well, I'm not, to me, and I think it's not always clear that, let me be careful here. It's understood how much time the permitting piece of it takes versus other activities. And I mean, you hear stories about people having to spend a lot of time on something that's not the permitting piece. And that could, so there's also just making sure that people are spending the time in the right places.
okay,
I think that
yes.
that's a point that I made when we last had this discussion of just being really, really careful that we're not increasing hours in a way that isn't directly related to the increase in work, and that it can go back the other way. I think, Kate, I take your point completely and completely agree with you that we need to make sure that we understand how much time a permit takes, and we need to be charging, the permit cost needs to be able to cover that.
Yeah.
Completely agree with that, which is different than what your point was, which was then taking that money and out of that revolving fund and paying for hours. That's two different things, right? There's making sure that we're recovering the money, and then there's using that money specifically for those hours, which I agree is a slippery slope.
And you know, part of the conversation we've started having, I mean, your philosophy is one more of return stuff to the general fund. So it's an interesting, it's just, we
And
just
they
raise
give
it
the
as
fees
a,
to cover
The
the
tracking.
cost, but it's gonna go into general fund and you give them the appropriation.
That's, I don't care how you do it.
Even more with that, you could spend it on other.
But the thing is that if the boards just keep on getting the extra hours without revising or reviewing their fees.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Then,
whole nother.
and this kind of puts pressure on them to continually revise and review their
But
fees.
that should be
Um,
something blanketed and made a policy of all your departments.
It should be, but if there's no incentive, then
And sometimes the
it doesn't
department
get
that
done.
gets extra money for the fee that doesn't work might pass on some of that work to another department that maybe doesn't have a revolving fund, that's actually causing more work for that
Well,
department.
there's another question here, it's a little bit separate, but related to the next fiscal year. The last time we were here, we were told that the Board of Selectmen did not intend to approve any additional hours or positions.
Right, you're
It'd be
right.
really helpful to us to know where you stand today
there you go.
on that.
Sorry.
And sometimes hours go from
Yeah.
part-time to full-time, and then you now start incurring
Right.
medical, life insurance,
Right.
and other additional costs that maybe the revolving fund can or cannot. And if the revolving fund, they're doing part of it, you get kind of on a slippery slope again with full-time. And then how do you tell somebody now, okay, well, now your job's no longer, here too, but, yeah. That also affect the COLA and all the other
Yeah.
things too, with his additional hours.
I don't want to.
Okay.
But yeah, there was the issue of, are there any updates in terms of any of the open questions around staffing requests? Have there been any additional recommendations from the Board of Selectmen on those? Board of Health, COA, CONSCOM?
We haven't voted, but we've certainly had the discussions and we may have consensus.
Do you, I guess, let me take that opportunity to, in terms of the calendar, just working backwards, because we're rapidly approaching the point where we need to, get final COLA in bed so that we can get the warrant out. And we're not there yet, but do you have the date for when we need to go to print? I mean, not like, not last year, but, because we want to build in I just want to remind everyone that we need to finalize everything, and then ideally we need a week plus for us to go through, make sure the numbers all tie, then write the budget letter, because again, we have to make sure our budget letter reflects passage of all the warrant articles, so we need to get basically the warrant needs to be locked down, and then we need about a week, ideally a little more than that, to figure out all the financial implications and then roll it all up so that then we can write the letter that goes in the front of it. So, last year it got really late. This year, I'm guessing that traditionally it's been like mid-March. So I'm guessing as from a Board of Selectmen, you probably don't have a lot of meetings between now and when.
Two. The intention is to close the warrant and lock everything down by the March 10th meeting.
Okay,
So that would.
so you'd have an answer on COLA?
Yeah, okay. Well, the board may have an answer on that tonight, I'm hoping, but.
Okay, yeah, I just
wanted
wanted
the positions and things like that.
Yeah, I just want to
Yes.
remind,
Yep.
so just a little calendar interjection there, just to make, because it comes up
So
fast.
we go to print, a week, like say the 18th, 19th, something like that, the following week. We should be going to print, so
And we'll
you
just
have
need,
about a week to get
we'll
it.
need a FinCom meeting.
Week to 10 days.
Yeah.
Were there any updates to the warrant? So right now, looking at the financial warrants, the biggest one is maintenance projects. Now, I think that number might change.
It has declined slightly, and is still
But that's in the upper six figures.
Oh, yeah.
74.
And we haven't, did I miss a meeting?
No,
where
you
we
didn't
s-
miss anything.
So we haven't seen anything from the facilities committee about what they want to do.
I'm happy to share it.
Let me just run through it
Yeah.
before we get, so that, we have that one, the next big one, will be the high school parking lot, which, we will be voting on first in Carlisle, which will be interesting. I think our share of that is roughly
It was 845, so.
240 something thousand. And then the other ones I have, and I'll just tick through them, the Cranberry Bog Consulting on option 4, which is $5,000, social worker, 7,500, renewal of alternative transportation funding, which is 10,000, funding for TMA, annual membership. What's TMA, annual membership?
The,
Transportation management.
transportation,
I think those.
left is off.
That's off?
Yep.
Those two articles.
Those two, the two
Transportation
transportation
related
ones are off.
articles.
Transportation Management Association, which is
Okay, so the 10,000 is off too, the COA? The 10,000, the alternative?
yeah, that was one of the ones that we discussed, we were gonna try to just fund through our budget, see
Right.
how it went.
Okay. And then financial consulting, $3,500, treasurer.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had question marks, or Victor had question marks next to, Greeno Complete Streets, and Master Planning Committee,
Okay, complete streets, we could talk about right now.
because that's a moving target.
Complete
Not
streets.
anymore.
We opened
No?
the bids.
Bid.
on
The bid,
Friday.
yeah, the bids were opened last Friday, and the apparent low bidder was, I think, 488,225, or approximately that amount. So our grant from the state is $250,000, and we need to identify other resources we have available, but obviously there's a shortfall that we're gonna have to identify.
So the 488,
240,000.
so
Yeah.
theoretically, if we got
Yeah.
with the 250, we'd be on the hook for the 238, the balance.
The
The
balance.
488 is the total project. You would take the
Total
grant.
construction, correct, yeah.
Okay, is that something, does that have to be, that doesn't qualify for any kind of CPA, does it? You can't use CPA in any respect.
No, not even.
Unfortunate.
Well, the RC is this year's chapter 90, we don't have another project.
We funded, the design was funded through chapter 90.
Which you
And
get.
I guess we can talk with Gary about whether there's any further ability to fund.
Was there anything around Greeno this year?
No.
That would be CPA.
No.
I think. And then master planning committee, which I don't know. Is there?
What,
It didn't
what is the
submit-
thinking
We have
there?
nothing- we have
Because
nothing
there's
from
already
them, so-
a budget was approved at the
Yeah, he
last
just had it
town.
as it was probably just a question mark, whether there was
Yeah.
gonna be any.
Okay,
We haven't heard of any budget requests.
No.
No.
So getting back to Complete Streets, it came in at 488,
48, correct.
and the grant was for 250.
250.
And is this about where we thought the delta might fall, or?
It's
just a whole lot
it's
of
a little
money.
more than that. I think the engineers thought the project would be about 400,000.
Uh-huh.
And it's slightly north of that, but, but the other bids were even higher, so this,
Yeah.
was the low
So
bid.
I probably misunderstood. I thought that the part that we really thought we might need to do is like that end of East Street there and the sidewalk.
That's
and-
what that was what we were hoping in our fondest.
Does this 488 include that East Street thing?
you know, the section just
Yeah, no,
coming
I
into
believe that it does.
225.
Not painted, but
Yeah, right.
really
The landscape,
paved.
the landscape.
So we
Yeah.
could shave a little off of that, but I don't
Yeah.
think we're gonna
The
shave off
committee's gonna meet
200.
next week and look at, make a recommendation to the board as far as which bid to accept and what the shortfall, likely is. So,
Wasn't there a $50,000 warrant last year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was for the flashing lights
So
that
that's-
was for some.
This number is different.
That's been spent.
Okay.
Were there any other warrant articles with a financial component that have either changed or?
The,
Jumped on.
well, the smaller one, the Board of Health tells me they're gonna decide Thursday whether or not they wanna go forward with the mosquito control district.
All right.
The board, I think, is having some second thoughts, and you know, there's some public
right.
pushback on whether or not we need to join the district. I don't know that the board is convinced either, so we had it in there for $30,000, they were considering it at $10,000, they may not go forward at all.
Nobody spoke in favor of it at the
No,
meeting at all.
boy, yeah, and we keep on getting lots of letters.
When I-
There's no mosquito problem here.
Love our mosquito.
I think from what I read, all we need to do is empty out our
Tires.
Our tires, yes,
and
right,
our
right.
bird watering.
Buy bat houses.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bad house.
we should bring back our bumper stickers, I break for mosquitoes.
Okay, is that it?
Because
I
there
think
isn't a
that's it.
money
I mean,
component to the
personnel
communications
piece
tower.
is kind of up
Yeah,
in the air.
Davis.
No, that would
No.
be get money in.
Okay, Right.
What about the, tax deferral program?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to talk about the
That,
text.
Well,
Eh,
David's here.
David gave us some language tonight on that.
We did, okay.
If you want to go forward with it.
One of the other things I talked to Jim O'Shea about was, being able to use tax workers in as aides for the classroom. But the problem is that 80 hours a week, or 80 hours total, really doesn't do the school any good. So when we talk about expanding this or expanding what are we talking about? Are we,
So there's two different, do you mind if I talk a little bit to this?
very briefly?
Okay, yeah, no, I know I can be long, but I was telling Tim earlier that, there's a couple options. One, on the tax worker program, we're at $1,000 maximum they can earn, and the state allows up to $1,500. So
Okay.
I'm not advocating for it, but we could expand up to $1,500, which would give, maybe 120 hours work versus 80 hours. And then the other thing is that there's another part of the Massachusetts general law that allows veterans to do this type of work also. So it's similar to the senior tax worker, but it's for veterans. And
You could just do younger people.
Yeah.
Younger.
yeah, but the town would have to enact it. It's not part of it. It's covered under a separate section of the Mass General Law.
All right, well, it's just,
Yeah.
it was mostly so that we integrate the school a little better into the whole town and get,
Can I just go back to David for a minute?
Yeah.
You don't spend all the money you have now, right? So if we raised it, you wouldn't necessarily even need a greater
Well, I think,
appropriation.
but that's true, except that we had raised it in 7 years ago from, I think, 17,000 to 25,000 as far as the overall amount available through the overlay. And so if you raise the individual component, I think you'd still have to raise the amount in the overlay, even if available through even if it wasn't used. Am I right about that, Kim?
There was 25
They're
raised for this included over
well,
above what
right,
the
because
assessor
we have
wanted
25
to-
slots of
to-
1,000,
to do
yeah.
that.
Okay.
So would we
So
still
if
have?
you did 500 more, and depending on how many took advantage, of it, if everybody did, you'd add 500 more to everybody.
Everybody took the
And if
max.
some still only did the 1,000, but some did the 1,500.
Okay, I didn't
But
realize.
it's all in
they
the
were like-
overlay, yeah, with that.
We
And then
have-
you'd have to accept the other chapter.
Right,
like
the
you
other
said,
chapter,
for,
right.
the
We
veteran
haven't been
to do.
advocating for an increase from 1,000 to 1,500 because for a lot of people, it's hard to actually get in the 80 hours, much less 120. But maybe if it's a younger person, maybe they wouldn't have a hard time getting in that extra hour.
Okay.
But still, it's part of the whole
Yeah.
equation and does,
Yeah.
Right.
When
crazy
your
overlay
taxes are
and
like.
taxes.
Yeah.
But again, if you're,
10,000, just getting 1,000.
but a few
it
thousand,
almost doesn't seem
if you
worth
take
it.
what your value is over what you're raising, if you, a
Gotta be
penny here
more
and there, it's not,
Leverage you
yeah.
can pull on that.
Yeah, I agree.
What was the,
If you wanna help
tipping fees changing?
your elderly that are complaining, having a hard time with their taxes.
As soon as the
July
contract,
1.
So
the
for
tipping
the-
fee is gonna
That's
change
gone up like
tipping,
30%.
at the end of
So that's
June.
coming out of the
Approve a new
hazardous
agreement,
waste
but that's
revolving
going up,
fund, which is
yeah.
paid for the.
It's not coming.
No, it
Well,
has
that's
to
not
be
coming-
you.
That's coming out of his.
No, we gotta get that changed.
Oh,
He said he was using it.
actually, as long as it passes town meeting, it can come out of the revolving fund. But not,
Oh, right, yeah, we're expanding the purpose of the revolving. fund.
right, so
Stick with
right now it
these.
can only be used for hazardous waste, but we're gonna change it so it can be used for any transfer station related.
Is that on the warrant, is that on this?
The revolving
last-
funds
Yeah, it's
are.
under the revolving fund.
Oh, it's under the
section.
revolving, I see, because it's
Yeah.
under that general umbrella revolving
Right.
funds. Ah,
Right.
okay,
So
okay.
do we budget as though that will pass? Or do we have to add
That's
money
the
into the
question.
budget for the increased fees? That we know are gonna happen.
Right.
Yes,
There's the question.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the vote on the revolving fund will occur before the operating budget. You'll know,
You can do.
you'll know when it fails and you have to add money.
It's just, this is a new one.
This
Yeah.
is a-
No, this is the
Kicking
new
in
contract.
July 1.
Whole new contract.
Again.
It's roughly
put it on the general
30%.
fund, Give him his
Yeah, it's a
budget.
big
Steep.
increase.
It's very
I
steep.
think
Give a
we
budget
would,
for that.
Yeah, no,
I would probably
absolutely.
budget for it, and if
I
the
would
other
too.
revolving is
That's our
forward
approach.
of it, and if it covers it, you can always indefinitely postpone the other or amend something than to not have
We'll
it.
move it,
Except that
yeah,
there
move
would
the
be-
money at some
Yeah.
point in the year, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the PEG Access Fund for many years, when CCTV was running the, local access, we were paying $125,000 as our share of the operating budget. Since we've gone in with Concord Minuteman Network, it's about $75,000, so we'll be pulling less out of the PEG fund at town meeting than we have.
But can we use that money for anything else?
No, I mean,
No.
it's only for local access programming and equipment and so forth, but.
But we can, we can use some additional equipment, such as
Oh,
a
certainly,
speaker
yeah.
system in here, so people don't have to, so
Yeah.
everybody can hear.
Yeah. The other side of the coin
That
is
exists.
Comcast revenues have been
That's-
declining in recent years. A lot of people are finding alternatives.
Other
but
things, so that-
Exactly.
That's gonna eventually dry up, so.
Yeah.
Scott, do we have any idea if all of the warrant articles were to pass, what our budget increase would be?
I don't have
You haven't
that
run those
number, I
numbers
mean, I
yet?
think, well, I mean, so let's say, let me just spitball here. If the high school passed, that would be through debt, I assume. Oh, no, it probably wouldn't be, so that would be 250, that would be roughly 1%. The maintenance projects would be on a $30 million budget, would be another 2% increase, if we just spent that all.
And then this complete streets thing, maybe?
Streets complete, well, that would be another,
Yeah,
about
Three
1%,
quarters, yeah.
so they all
And then what
pass.
about the tower?
That's already,
That's
that's
What
not
tower?
part of
There's no
it.
cost for
That's-
that.
We
I thought
did
was
that
hitting
last
us this
fall.
year. No?
That's sitting,
The tower we approved in the
Yeah.
fall.
oh,
The project.
what,
All one.
the,
There's so many towers.
I don't know, we have to look at what the debt payment is on that, because I think that's being funded through
The
debt, isn't it?
last debt payment we just did in November, we did a BM for.
So the answer is no, I don't have a
3.8
number.
million.
So I should not go-
We did a 3.8 million.
But it could be a big, big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I mean, so
And I
1%
think that
is,
had the
every
towers,
It did have the
300,000
tower in it.
1%.
and then next year we'll
So
go
if
to
we're
permanent bonding, so I think.
Raising all that money in 1 year, and we're not, spreading it out, then every 300,000 is 1%, an additional percentage increase. Now,
We do have levy.
we do have, I don't know what the exact number is, we're gonna look at that, but we're expecting more revenue next year, more growth in town, than we've had in previous years. We've had some of that positive cash flow, so, if we have excess free cash, when we get, there's a whole host of things that play into the final tax impact, but, yeah, I mean, if you approve these large warrants, and you have to raise that money in a year, then yeah,
Mhm.
it's.
And the point is, right, that actually, those things could increase the budget more than all the rest of the budget that we
Right.
already have right
So
now.
we're looking at 1.7 now on the operating budget
Yeah,
without
that does
COLA?
not include the
Without COLA?
long-term, without COLA and without the
Long-term
long-term debt.
Facilities, oh, debt.
We have to get the numbers on that, but yeah, figure 1.7%. So
Without COLA.
without COLA. So COLA, if it's $80,000, figure 0.25%. So maybe bring it up to 2,
Just the operating budget.
just the operating budget.
And did all the departments come in
It's the same as.
within the guideline?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
He said.
Except the ones that made requests.
no department has made a request to change the guideline, so they all met the guideline. But yeah, I mean, it's, you wanna do over $1 million in warrant articles, it's gonna cost $1 million.
Hey! Why didn't I
It doesn't
think of
just
that?
magically appear. But, that's.
I'm glad we have such a good finance committee.
Yes, I
So it's a Holiday Inn. But no, but every 300,000 is a percentage
Is a
increase,
percentage,
so
yeah.
I love
that's
that
how
commercial.
you can look at it.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Okay.
but part of the reason we need to get the numbers locked down is once we have the numbers, then we need to go out and figure out what's the right way to fund it. Are we raising it all in a year? Are there projects that we want to use debt to fund? In which case you spread the time out. So that's that's why we need to get these numbers as close to possible, because.
And you have warrant articles that can be spent over more than 1 year. So even though it looks like it could be hit you all at once, it won't.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true too.
But it will hit you eventually.
Yes, apparently. No, why can't we just?
So my preference would be, since, in the past, we've always kind of looked at these numbers as a whole and said, okay, well, if we do this, what is it gonna happen? What is gonna happen? My preference would be for you to go ahead and put in the 2% COLA, but not that it's an approved thing. It's just, here's the placeholder, just so we kind of know what the impact is.
Why can't we just approve it?
For the, well,
I would.
you're the chair, you can do what you want. I was just saying.
I would just say, we would, most likely what we would do is just estimate it, because to actually put it in the budget does require a fair amount of work, where Priscilla has to go through every department. So to actually put it into the budget at 2%, you wouldn't want to do that. You want to do that once when you know the final number. For now, we know it's going to be plus or minus $5,000. The 2% would be $80,000.
Mhm.
Right, that's
Yeah.
fair, right? Like,
Well, if you get the munis module and you go through the payroll thing, you
Oh,
can kind of
okay.
figure it out. And just do scenarios. No, it's a good number to use in that if you approve different.
and I can
like said,
confirm that
percentages.
the
Yeah.
80,000 represents that.
I talked to Priscilla earlier.
Was
when
that
she
the-
gave
that
it
was-
before you- That was. yeah,
based on a 2%, right?
2%.
And we know what it was last year.
It's just no
It's
new
basically looking at
changes
last
to
year, you
it.
just-
I think fire might be
That's a
something
wrinkle
that's in
from
there,
before,
which is
but yeah, but it's not a huge thing.
But there's not, you're pretty good even up,
But last year we
1,000
did
on that.
1.75, is that right?
It was 2 last year.
No, we did two.
Or, so they recommended 2
2
and a quarter or something, and we did 2?
No, it was 2.3 or something. It was some, it was,
They
it was more than
recommended
two, and we
board
said no,
approved
just two. Forgot what it was though.
I mean, we could get, what the estimate of 2% versus 1.75. If you want to look at, like, what's 175, what's 2, we can get that estimate for you. When you do want to, if you want that before making a decision.
Well, if 2% is 80,000, I assume 1% is 40,000.
40,000.
I don't know if it works that way.
And then- I don't know, it's, I'll get out my
60,000.
calculator.
Get your
but
slide rule out, would you?
Why do I feel like it doesn't work that way? Because it's some kind of weird.
Roughly speaking.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so, and did you get this, well, I don't know if we're gonna talk about it now, but that we do have information about if we approve the Conservation Commission position, what it would Right, that's, approximately right, we should. cost. I don't know if you guys got a copy of it?
Yeah, just,
No. This memo. Grade 5 with a 2% COLA, grade 6, step 1 with a 2% COLA.
this is the additional person, yeah. Oh, no. This is to a grade 6.
What are you looking at there?
This is the personnel request.
Okay.
You just handed this out tonight.
Is that?
You just handed this out tonight, right?
Not in the packet, I've got copies of it. That-
Oh,
The board had asked me to put
I
all
don't
the
have a
requests on
copy
one
of that.
sheet, and so that's, should have that. Okay.
This one here?
I should, but
Yeah,
for some
yep.
reason. Yeah, the proposed new positions.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Why don't I have that one? Because I think the very last page in that
Oh, your
section.
No, it's good looking at like.
It's on the,
There it is.
it's on the last page of section 4.
Yeah, sorry. So can I ask a follow-up question about the timing? So you're, at what point are you bringing back what you think is the final?
Final recommendation would be, what's the
Because it's not on this calendar, I
Another-
don't think that,
final?
We have another coordination meeting before,
right.
I
'cause
think we meet on the 10th and kind of bring everything together. But the 25th is the board's next meeting. We don't have anything scheduled for that.
25th? Well, yeah, we're not meeting again until the 24th, so I don't think.
No, yes.
Well, maybe we have to have a special meeting.
Put
then,
one
just
in
to-
here then, right?
Because
We had a
we
working
should get
meeting
together
before.
before we close everything, right?
Yes.
And we're saying we're gonna close,
On the
on the 10th of March.
And Kate won't be here.
I won't be, well, I'll be here
You will.
in body, but
Oh,
it's probably not in spirit. I've come in, at least, I just changed my thing, it won't be a red eye coming in on the 10th, at least.
On the
Coming in at 5
positions?
to 10.
Yeah.
On the 9th,
You want to know
Just
the,
on positions or overall?
well, from you, I mean, we need to know COLA and the position requests to finalize our budget recommendation.
Right.
Right.
So, well, and to be fair, the process is, you would define a position as, you would approve a position from the standpoint of you think it's a priority, and then we would look at if we would include it in our budget recommendation.
Yes,
Yep.
right.
And so, clearly, you want to, so it's important that you're aware of what the net budget increase is.
So two of these involve though, other than just the annual wage, like the facilities manager. If that's 6 hours, they were 19 and a half, so that requires
Some are new positions, some are hours.
benefited
That's gonna do-
positions
Yeah,
too, as does the, which other one? The Board of Health Administrative Assistant, so there's two positions that would increase medical benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
And also,
Percent.
This happens.
is that right?
No.
Or no?
Separate.
Well, down the line.
Down the
if they're-
line,
yeah,
if you
down the
pay it
line,
out, yeah.
it's-
Your pension liability and stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
OPED is driven by employees, right? I mean, that, how much we spend.
They'll be on it in the equation, but it's payout for future liability. It's not gonna immediately increase it.
No short-term
Will do
costs, but
short-term,
long-term
yeah,
costs.
Long-term
Right.
costs.
yeah.
So we don't think about that.
And my kids are rich.
Into the, yeah.
All right, so I guess I'll change my
I'll
mind
share the
if we
pension.
want to
Go
go
ahead.
ahead and do on the COLA. I don't want to slow them down. It was 2% last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just,
I'm ready to vote on
can
that.
I
Is
have
that
a
what
motion?
we had proposed in
I
here?
move that the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen approve a 2% COLA for fiscal '21.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. That's done.
All right, so you got a 2% COLA for next year. Then, in terms of the positions, do we want to talk about those very briefly or not?
Yeah,
And make some
let's
decisions?
make some
I mean,
decisions
let's
if we
just
can.
Fish or cut bait on some of
Yeah.
these. Personally, I think the project procurement specialist we can do without for the time being. We're looking to see if there's other ways we can, skin that, cat, and,
This is the one we just discussed, about getting some support from the school.
yes, but
Yeah.
but we don't need, that's not a whole new position.
No, I
Yes,
know, I'm just
exactly.
saying, and
Yes.
also that the facilities committee was just talking about.
Yes.
How difficult it's gonna be to manage whatever money is provided without some more staff support to.
But we
Follow
would
it.
get some staff support through the cooperation with the school and possibly with, Jen being able to take on some of this. So I just don't think we're quite, I'm much more interested in getting the extra hours for the facilities
Yeah.
manager at this point than to get a new procurement officer, because we have procurement people. I mean, Tim does the procurement now, Kim can help a little, I think. Jen will be getting up to speed, and Rob already, I think, does a little, gives his little teddy palms for the procurement when Steve has a question, so.
And Tim, what's your feeling about this one?
I think that we ought to see what transpires with the cooperation with the schools. I mean, Jim
Okay.
seemed very positive today.
Okay.
Frankly, they've never refused any opportunity to, they shared their IT guy at one point, and Steve and Rob worked together well, so I think,
I would just like to get it on a kind of with a memorandum of understanding that we have access to a certain number of hours, so that we're not out there kind of, should we ask, we're not asking,
Or a handout or
is there, and it's a handout, yeah, exactly, we need to feel very confident about it, that's
I
what I'm
agree.
trying to get on.
Rather than create a position, I think.
The COA outreach social worker,
I'm very strongly in support of that.
I am as well.
They've taken a couple things off the table, they've compromised on where the funding's gonna come from. I think this is a position that has a great deal of use, there's a demand for it, and it's a modest cost for the kind of service that'll be provided.
What's the cost of, so it's
Yeah.
annual wage of,
18.5.
is, and the net budget increase is 10, so what's the cost offset there? Is it because you're taking an existing resource?
Are you
and-
taking a revolving fund for part of that?
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
it starts off at, it's a grade 6, I think it's the total cost is like 28 cents.
28.5, yeah, and
Yeah.
it says net budget increase is 10,000.
Right, so we took 50%, for the first time ever, we're gonna use part of our state grant to pay for
Oh,
a regular staff position. And 50% of our $12,300 state grant will be $6,150. And then we applied for 10,000 to the community chest. So we're hopeful that we'll get that 10,000, so that's 16,150. And then based on the discussions that you guys had regarding the use of revolving accounts, Kim and I met and she explained how that would work for us. And in our department, we have 2 staff people that are outreach and program assistants. So they're each part-time, they job share. And so we have a revolving fund that we seem to be using. For example, to date, we've used, $13,000 out of a revolving fund, but we've taken in like 17 or 18,000. So we're taking in more than we're paying out. And so it's been building up, just like a lot of departments. So we feel that we could put, I can't remember what the figure is, 2,500. At least for this first year, 2,500 out of the revolving fund. And it's, if I understand this properly, it's allowable because it's to pay for an outreach position. This new position is an outreach position. And we have 2 part-time people that do outreach support. So we can pay there's mental gymnastics here, but we're paying 2,500 or whatever that figure is from the revolving fund toward our 2 existing part-time positions.
And do all of those things flow also into next year? So we're increasing, or we're hiring somebody new, or this is a new person?
Yeah.
And so 10,000 of that was a request from, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Community
chest.
Yeah.
And so if we don't get that the next year, then that's 10,000 that will be funding next year. How many of those items might
And then the
be
formula
funded?
grant is what you're using.
Well, the formula grant's very solid.
Pretty solid.
As a matter of fact, the formula grant in 2022 should go up because it's based on our senior population, and our senior population after the next census is finished should go up for about 55%. So we should have more money available out of this formula grant. The community chest, the reason that I feel pretty confident about that is because the community chest already pays for this type of position for the Concord COA. So they pay for 3 different positions in the Concord COA, Concord Council on Aging. So I don't know, it seems to be the type of thing that they like just to pay for.
Would we know that for the community chest next year, for the fiscal 21, do we know?
We'll know about it in May or June.
So we'll need to budget, we'll have to budget that, we can't assume that we're gonna get community chest money in the budget, is my point.
Yeah.
Well, but, I mean, couldn't we say if it doesn't come through, then it doesn't happen?
Potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, because we don't have the person, right? So it's
Well,
not.
that's what if you're basing on grants and revolving funds, usually if it doesn't come through, you don't hire.
fewer hours.
You know, so,
When do you
Yeah, or
plan on
fewer
hiring
hours.
the person?
You have to cut it back
July
by the
1
10,000.
anyway,
Yeah, it's
so,
not, the
so
person
you're not gonna
wouldn't
hire
be-
till July 1, you'd know
it's
by
not a
May
Ju- it's a
whether you
July
had
1
to
hire at the earliest.
advertise,
okay.
so
Okay.
you don't advertise it if you don't get the funding.
So
So we'd be
I'm,
putting in $10,000, right? And
Right.
if anything
Right.
doesn't happen of all those other things, you'd have $10,000
yeah,
for hours.
But the planned
Yeah.
fiscal '21 budget has to include the 10,000.
Yes.
right.
Right, so
Like
yes.
with anything here that
Yes,
has
it
other
is.
sources
Right,
of
it
funds.
is.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
But,
Thank you.
Okay.
so
Want to vote on
I want to
these?
vote on this one.
I would move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request for a COA outreach worker at 19 and a half hours with, which would require a budget, a contingent of $10,000 in our budget.
Second.
Okay, and it's contingent on their receiving the,
Community chest grant.
Community chest grant. Okay, and
I'll second it.
second, any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so there's one position.
And I would just remind everyone that, given the approval, now FinCom will look at.
Exactly,
Determine
but
whether
you know
they-
where we stand
No,
on it.
Yeah, but I just for the,
We're not
Audience.
saying-
the audience.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
Yep.
all right,
Yes.
yeah.
It's just in past years, it's like, no, it's been approved. It's like, well, yeah. So the next step in the process, that's
Right.
one of the ones we'll look at, and then we know the delta on the budget, so, thank you.
Yeah. Then there's the Board of Health Administrative Assistant.
We should hire more of these people because it's saving us $4,500.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's because the fees went up.
Yep.
And,
And they
and,
decreased
and they,
hours.
and they actually decreased hours because they had two part-times that added up to 30 hours. And now they have one full-time,
Yeah,
no,
this-
so two part-times that were 44 hours, right? They were both at,
No,
215.
215s,
This
okay.
30-hour week here is wrong.
this, okay, so I knew that,
That's
I
right,
thought it was
it's like
27
20
hours a week.
24.
Or
Yeah.
24 hours. This 30 hours a week is wrong. There, I knew there was a decrease in hours.
Right.
So we had 30 hours of employees that are going down to one full-time 24-hour employee at a higher grade, of course. But the idea that was that there will be some succession planning involved in this. They have too deep
Coverage.
and they're raising their fees. That covers most of the, because their fees were too low for the, again, the amount of hours they were spending on permitting functions. So that actually is a savings in the budget of $4,500.
But but this is paying for hours out of revolving fund, right? That's
And it is paying for hours out of revolving funds.
It assumes revenue we
But
don't have.
it's also a full-time position, so there's other.
It is,
Benefits.
there are other costs, yes.
So the annual wages listed here would be at the amount not out of the revolving fund, is that correct?
Correct, that's the general fund amount.
That's right.
Operating budget.
So I'm not sure what this is doing. So, like, I'm not sure how we budget for this, right?
So this
So
is,
is this taking $4,500 out and saying, yes, you can have a 30-hour person?
It's not a 30-hour,
No.
it's a 24-hour person.
That's
24-hour
incorrect,
person.
that number, yeah.
It's
So they
replacing
would-
two 15-hour people.
the amount that the town, that would be funded out of the general fund would be the 14,328. The
Right.
balance is a revolving fund, which is not included in the operate, that's a separate.
That's right, funding source.
All that revolving fund is not, we don't touch that, it's not part of the operating budget. So it's like,
So we have to budget this anyway.
we would have to budget 14,328. Currently, what's in their budget would be the 18,
Right.
between the two part-time people, if
Right.
we go pull their budget request, there's
Uh-huh.
18,000.
Plus the health.
But that
insurance.
doesn't,
Yeah.
that uses the old revolving
Right.
fund, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit of, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of sleight of hand. On the other hand, what we're trying to do is get the revolving funds to cover the amount of hours that they're costing us. And then,
Which is good, but we still,
and we
they
still
only get one
need,
paycheck.
Or, yeah.
right?
Yes,
They don't
right,
get
yep,
two.
right,
So
right.
the full amount of their paycheck has to be budgeted
Right.
by us. It's offset on the revenue side, but on the expense side, the full amount has to be budgeted. Unless they're getting two
No, I don't think
paychecks.
so.
No, you get one paycheck and pull from two funds.
Because that's what we do in like COA.
You should be-
I mean,
Although I
that
get
too.
weird
Well,
when it
that's
gets
accounting
full-time,
for it,
but
though.
yeah.
I don't know.
We don't
Yeah.
have the revenue.
We'll have to, let's get an answer when we talk about
No, you
this
have
one.
to, yeah, after,
Okay.
yeah.
Which, by the way, answers one of your other questions, is you were quite correct. When we started this mess umpteen months ago, we said no new positions.
Yeah.
We changed our mind.
Well, that's,
Yes, right. But I think it did make people go back to the
it was
office and
process.
sharpen their pencils and think about how can we change our operations and work more efficiently and do things differently. So I think it was still a healthy
It was a
exercise.
zero-based budget. but
It was a
but
zero-based budget in certain
but-
respects, but
we have to respond to requirements of the town
yeah. And they've been asking
for years.
for years. So it's not like it's,
Yeah.
you know, they pulled this out of the air because, oh, goodness, you know, good, we have funds. They didn't, that's not what.
And I'm assuming you'll get provided, or if you don't have already, the information that David provided us about the demand and the services and.
Yeah, no, we've seen it.
Yeah.
So
All
this
right.
next one, I think, is the only one on this list that we've, I believe, always supported.
Which one?
The police
administrative assistant.
Yeah,
Assistant.
could we finish with the Board of Health one?
Yep.
Because I think we haven't had a vote, and I think.
I
we
move
just need
we
to go ahead and
approve
do it.
the Board of Health Administrative Assistant as proposed.
Is there a second?
Can I just ask a question? What is the total cost of it with insurance? Like, what percentage do we put on? Because it's just,
Well, any employees, it's, if they're eligible for benefits, it's 50/50 on the benefit side of it. So whatever plan they take on, the town picks up 50% of that.
What percentage of salary is
35%
that?
added, we
yeah,
figure on.
we're up
Yeah,
to
right,
35%.
35%.
And what is the piece that's not on this is what's the total cost of the position?
Right.
It's not clear how much
That's,
is,
yeah,
right, that's what I was getting at.
I don't
you
know.
have to look at the budget and.
Yeah, we did have that, but
Yeah.
it's lost here.
All right, I have a
So we need a
motion.
second. I will
Yes.
second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the selectmen are supporting that position.
Did you want to vote against the first one? You didn't take a vote on the first one, did you?
The project, oh, okay, we
Did
can
you want
vote.
to disapprove, or, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if you.
Somebody want to give me a motion to?
Oh,
I move that we,
Support.
you want
Give me
a
a
positive or
motion
negative?
to support and
Yeah,
then
okay,
we'll
I'll give
vote
it-
against it.
Good. I'll move that we support the project procurement position as proposed.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay, okay. Okay, so
Not
that was
supposed to vote against
unanimous.
something you
Nay.
made a motion for.
Okay. So that one's, Police Department Administrative Assistant, I agree with you, Nathan, I think we were always in, support of this.
I move we support the Police Department Administrative Assistant
No.
increase in grade.
You can ask-
Second.
No, I'll
Okay,
ask my
now
question during the
discussion,
discussion, yeah. So, you're saying in the last umpteen years, it's been supported by the Board of Selectmen?
No, this year, we,
Oh, just this year you're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about?
yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
This is effective July 1, not current.
Correct.
Correct.
July 1.
So let me just check it, 'cause it's a
Don't
great
they
change.
usually
Yeah, sometimes I just check in to make sure if it's not
already in place?
already in place.
Yeah, no, it won't, it's not retroactive, it's
Alright,
going
okay.
forward. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, so we're in favor of that one. Assistant to assessor, nothing happened because it didn't get regraded.
Correct.
Facilities manager, an additional
That's 6 hours.
6 hours.
6 hours,
Bring the position to 25, but
yes,
Become
to
full.
bring him up to 25.
proposal.
Now, that does make him eligible for benefits this particular facilities manager will not require them, but that doesn't mean that
Okay, but going forward.
going forward, we wouldn't have somebody else.
As we've talked about, this is a position that saves the town money.
In this position, there's no question in my mind, it's saving town tons of money. In fact, Jerry has on that spreadsheet, one of the things that we were going to ask for, how much were we going to ask for at the, was it the library or is it,
For the air handler at the library, I don't have the number.
okay, but it was
On the order of 20 or 30,000.
30,000, we've taken it off because he's fixed it. And we'll, you know, so that's just one little item.
Well, it's good that we're keeping a log of that, because I think it's helpful to see.
We're trying to keep track of it,
Otherwise
exactly.
it gets lost and.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, unfortunately, savings never show up in the budget.
Yeah, they don't.
So what is 6 hours gonna do to kind of move that needle? I mean, should we actually be considering more hours?
Well,
You know, where did 6 hours come from?
this
Always
particular
willing to
gentleman
work.
is not interested in more. That's all he wants. So that's a bind there. One thing we found, because we've been meeting almost weekly, he's spending 2 or 3 hours a week sitting across the table from us, which is beneficial to us because we learn what he's up to, but it's restricting his time out of it. So this would actually give him, this would be 6 real hours in the field. He has literally been going building by building around the town and starting primarily with the HVAC systems and just trying to get them all working. He's had a lot of support from Mr. Risso, but he is time constrained. And in chatting with him about this particular increment, he said that would mean a lot. It would basically give him another half day plus round up his hours on a couple of days where he might only get 2 or 3 hours on site. So it would have a big impact because he will be working hands-on for 6 more hours a week on something.
And he's had enormous success at the police station, at the library, at town hall, in getting our HVAC systems working the way they're supposed to.
Even in the Highland building.
Even in the Highland building, yes.
Don't do that.
that
Don't do that.
No, the HVAC system there went down, and because no one had been going in it, no one noticed, and we don't even know how long it had been. And he had to repair both the HVAC system and the fire alarms. And he did it by going, amongst other things, going to the hardware store and buying batteries off the shelf, cost $50. And if you had Simplex come out and install them in the fire alarm, $2,500. So
Yeah.
he's a real gem. And I kind of look with disappointment ahead to the day where he's fixed everything.
I move we support the addition of the facilities manager as proposed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Boy, we know how to burn through money, don't we?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna abstain from that one.
You're gonna abstain from that one? Okay, so there's one abstention.
And the reason being is that, you know, we haven't really talked about this in detail on the Board of Selectmen. I understand our need to move forward
Yeah.
and make a decision. I just don't feel like I have enough information to know whether or not 6 hours is really gonna make a difference.
Okay. The assistant town clerk, the town clerk last year asked for 6 hours. This is the same 6 hours that they're asking for again. And the selectmen supported it last year, but it came in late, so it didn't go through, and,
Have we gotten an actual, I don't recall that we've gotten an actual description of what is needed and why the request for the, I know it's been submitted several years in a row, but did we get
for the
a
6 hours for the
submission?
assistant town clerk.
Yeah, did we get a submission in the same way that we've gotten very clear documentation about some other requests?
I think we haven't because we so quickly said no.
That's what because
Yeah.
we had said no last fall
Yeah.
around this one.
Yeah. I think, again, it's the type of thing where the bandwidth, for the town clerk gets, foreshortened, because of all the, window hours, or people coming to the window every 3 minutes. And it's really helpful to have somebody kind of,
There to handle
there to
that, rather
handle
than
a
get
lot of that.
interrupted.
Yeah, that was part of the thing, as I recall, and then to have the window covered.
But we're talking
hours.
about, changing, on the warrant is gonna be the proposal to change the town clerk. Now, that would go into effect in 2021?
No, it wouldn't change anything at this point, because if we have an elected town clerk, it won't change anything until the town
End their
clerk,
term.
as the end of the term.
Yeah, so
So-
which would be the May election in 2021, you're saying? Or the election this May?
This May, the clerk's position will be up for a 1-year term.
And
which
it'll
would-
be
is the
elected,
remainder of what Mary Aldereti's term
It'll be-
was.
Yes,
elected,
elected,
and then
yes.
it'll change
And then
again.
if town meeting votes to
it
change it to
passes.
appointed, once the Attorney
And it-
General approves it, you're talking about a year's time.
Yeah, yeah.
And most likely, I would venture to say, we would, if the sitting town clerk wanted to be, well, she would,
The same town,
That's the
usually
way
you
it-
just shift it, their term up to appointed.
Yeah, that's the way that the warrant article is written, that the elected town clerk will become
We
the
become
town's
the-
first
yeah,
appointed
right,
clerk.
right.
Then it's an appointment that the board makes
Right,
right.
thereafter.
right.
And then when they leave, then
Whoever's
it's
in the
then
seat
appointed.
becomes the
Right.
appointed
And,
clerk.
but they could also be dismissed if they don't,
Okay, they're an employee like anyone
an
else.
employee now.
No, the reason I'm asking is if there's gonna be some changes there, I just wonder if we should wait until that all settles down, before we consider increasing.
That wouldn't
the
really
hours.
change how the office operates, whether you're appointed or elected, though.
No, but it might be a different person. Right, depending on,
But we've
In
already hired,
2021, yeah.
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 The new hire is going to be hired for how many hours?
Well, currently it's 24 hours.
So the new
So
hire is
if-
for 24
If the
hours.
6 hours are approved July 1st, effectively
Yeah.
it'd be a 30-hour per week position, but it's currently 24.
And has that person been hired?
Yes, just this week, but in the last week, so.
And were they told that it might go to 30?
I presume they were told that. Yeah, I mean, the clerk interviewed the candidates, and
Yeah.
I think that was part of the discussion.
Tim, like several months ago, you gave us your recommendations on all of these, and your recommendation was not to do this, right?
It was to do this, and I supported the clerk's request and the Conservation Commission's request.
Yeah,
And
okay.
part of my reasoning was that the interim clerk is a first-time clerk, and she's currently working 30 hours a week versus the 35 that the previous clerk worked, so that she does need support in the office, which is why I would, support the 6 hours for the assistant as well, to give broader coverage in the department.
Is she being paid hourly at this point?
No, it's a salary, it's an elected
It's a salary.
position.
Elected
It's a salary.
position. There's no hours.
See, that makes it tricky. That's the other thing about appointed is,
Right.
Well, if you go appointed. we
But then
could-
tomorrow night, like she
require
said, she's
35
working till
hours.
8
yes,
o'clock.
that's
to-
what that's true.
an
If we go
hours, but-
appointed, we could require 35 hours.
Well, then it's no longer a salary that's voted at town meeting.
Right.
The
It's a
article
salary
that
scale.
elected officials, there's the clerk and then 3 assessors. They're
Right.
the only ones that are under that article.
Right.
If the clerk were appointed, they'd be part of the wage and classification system.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
If it's,
yeah,
if
it
it were
would
an
be
appointed
defined.
position, we could then
Yeah.
require 35 hours, in which case we might not need 30 for the assistant. But at this point, if we only have, our clerk is only working 30 hours, she may indeed need 30 hours for the
Well, that
assistant, so
was-
it's tricky.
Kind of my logic, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little odd.
Well, does the wage now reflect, if you were put it on the salary scale, does it reflect 30 hours or does it reflect 35? If you were to convert it?
This, was it,
It's a full-time equivalent salary for the clerk. It's,
for the.
So that's what I'm
It'd be
saying, if
35.
she's right now, if you were to convert her with that number, would it be 30 or 35 hours?
35-hour schedule, so the
Oh,
salary
okay.
is
Yeah,
always.
she's working a few hours for the same
Okay.
salary that the last one
Yes.
worked,
Right.
35 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to say no to this one at the I think we might have a point until we get a new person in.
Just till we figure out which
Until
way
we
we're
figure out
going, yeah,
where we're going.
what town meeting votes for.
Okay.
So, can I
It
have
seems
a,
like though, it's kind of,
it's,
it's kind of interesting that, you know, I'm just trying to bring it back to like our previous discussions and
Yeah.
everything, that it was my understanding that the last time when I think you had asked Tim to give us a recommendation on what he would do, I think we were all supportive of doing what was in that recommendation. And now it seems like we're doing the opposite. We're not supporting what he recommended and we're
yeah.
approving the other ones.
Of course, some of the situation has changed. When he made that first recommendation, Mary Dal Rett was still the clerk. She's the one that asked for those 6 hours.
Well, and then the other thing that changed.
Working
was,
35 hours.
We said no on the other two positions, and then
The new positions.
they went back and figured out how to tighten their belts and come up with a new proposal for how to fund the positions.
Yeah. And in
So
the
things
case of
have
the
changed
facilities
some.
manager, we have lots of things that we need him to do. So, all right, so we need a,
All right, I will move, like I did before, that the assistant town clerk increase in hours be approved, or be supported.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Nay. So, that one goes down. For the time being. Assistant to Conservation Administrator.
Another year.
Okay. Yes.
He'll be back
You
next
notice
year.
I said for the time
He's
being.
just
Yep.
coming.
Yes, yes.
He'll
Sure,
be
nope.
Did you
They'll
see
be back.
Scott's reaction?
Keep bringing it back till it gets.
Well, it will, but the thing is that
You let
No,
this
I-
dust settle, yeah.
Yeah,
we have to let the dust settle.
no, if it was originally and we had it with
We-
another person and changed from 30 to 35.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
you know. Let's see what happens. Assistant to the Conservation Administrator rather, 35 hours for an increase of $8,343. This was one that Tim did support.
I think this is the third year that they've made that request.
And
They've looked
they've
at fees
brought us-
and various creative ways to,
Right.
to help defray some of those costs.
Sylvia's here, Alex from their board.
They've sent us a lot of information.
Yeah.
Done a lot of homework. And from what I understand, the fees will probably be going up yet again once they get some of their bylaws, some new bylaws set, and then, so some of those fees will be going up, so there'll be additional income that they will generate to help offset some of these costs. And part of the reason they need these hours is because of the demands of the permitting make Sylvia go out of the office much more. And she needs somebody to be covering in the office and or learning her job and going out instead of her. So I think this is one that
Okay,
has been,
so I'll make a motion so we can discuss it.
okay.
I move that the assistant to the Conservation Administration, administrator position, increasing by 5 hours a week at grade 6, be supported.
For a second,
Second.
discussion.
I think they've made the case.
I agree. Barney? Any?
Well, I just had written myself a note here. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So going forward, the increased fees that have already been put in place
Yes.
are going to offset the increase being requested. leaving a net increase of 8420. Is that what?
No.
No, all
This
right.
doesn't take into account the fees.
The net increase is about $4,600.
Okay,
The projected increase in fee revenue is about $3,800. I'm just rounding up here.
yeah,
Is about $3,800, and that's projected based upon the fees that we got, the applications that we got last year, applying the new fees to that would generate an additional $3,800. And part of our problem in terms of determining what the fees, should be is we don't have a revolving fund. It goes into the general fund. And so there's really, for us, no easy accounting methodology to figure out how much of our, time is spent on wetlands applications and how much is spent on, maintenance of conservation lands and all the other things that the CONSCOM does. But, back of the envelope, if you were really trying to cover all of the wetlands application costs, you would have to more than triple the fees that we're taking in now. And there's a problem, for us in doing that, is that if you can't account very well for it, then you get into the problems. Is it a fee or is it a tax? And if it's a tax, you're not allowed to do it. So we have to be a little bit careful about that. I don't know if there's some methodology or help we can get in determining, what the fees should be. We did what amounts to a 22% increase. We're trying to streamline the applications as part of the new bylaw that we're trying to put together, and that should reduce time on at least some categories of the applications. But that's for the fall town meeting, I think.
So you said that the increase is roughly $4,400? You said the net increase?
The net increase is roughly
Because what we're looking at here is a net increase of $8,400.
Yeah, but that's, the $8,400 is a calculation based upon just the status quo, 7 hours, grade 5 with a 2% COLA versus grade 6, 32 hours.
Okay, so this
with a
spreadsheet
2%
doesn't
COLA.
represent any of the other
So-
things.
Right.
So those calculations don't take into account any of the increased fees.
I have more copies of what I said.
so what should we be looking at? You're saying we should be looking at this, your scenario sheet?
What's the actual rate increase in the budget?
So in the scenario sheet, there's a calculation, there's 4 scenarios set out as to the basic wage costs. And-
Yeah, the 47,870, oh no, it's
Yeah,
not.
the 47,005 would be the ask. Status quo is 38,584, so the
Yeah.
difference is 8,400.
Okay,
And then the fee increase has been calculated
oh,
at 3820, so if you take the 3820 off of the 84, you get to about 46.
That's what we had in our packet.
Yeah.
Okay, I had this.
so why does this say net budget increase of 8343? This sheet,
Because it doesn't take into account the fee increase.
And the fees, remember, is
okay.
not a revolving
General
fund.
It's what
fund.
you actually,
You still
it's
have to
what,
budget for
it's
it.
what the FinCom actually has to budget for.
So, but there's some increase on the revenue side.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what he's
okay.
saying, the 3,800
Yeah,
of
okay.
more fees will come in.
got it.
Right.
Okay.
That just goes into our general fund, it's not a revolving fund.
There's no COLA added to any of the numbers on this chart.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in my chart, I had.
You added the
I
COLA to
think
your
you
chart, yeah.
included the 2%.
Yeah.
And the grade 6 is whatever was on the town's website as step 1, grade 6 there.
So how does this work? I know that we just went through this with the other one, but, so what we would be doing is putting either $8,420.18 or $8,343 in our budget, right?
Yep.
And the budget goes up by that amount,
Right.
so
You get more,
but that's not an increase in tax because we're expecting the increased revenue?
you would get,
Or are we having to raise tax, or are we having to raise this money no matter what?
well, I
Well, you'd
mean,
have to raise it this year, because you're gonna probably get the revenue in next year that will fold into, like, your free cash.
change has already started because the fees
Well, it's
Fees already went up.
so we could, you know.
But you're getting it, that might be increase in your free cash this year that you have.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it probably won't show up in the.
On the
but
spreadsheet,
it'll show
it's
up in free
like,
cash.
there's it's
Yeah,
all the
I-
expenses, but then on the top line, there's
It's
like
part of a local
receipts.
receipt, yeah.
There's an amount that'll be forecast, and so theoretically, that number would go up
Right.
3,800. And then, so the amount you have to raise through the property tax would go down
Yeah.
by 3,800.
Uh-huh.
If you
That type
raise
of
that one number up, yeah,
But the,
Yeah.
on the cost side, you're increasing the budget
Yeah.
8,300.
yes, but there's an offset.
The revenue
Yeah,
side.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion?
What's the other
Have we
thing? Yes,
moved?
was there a motion yet?
I'm not sure how this becomes effective year over year as a way of accounting for this type of a increase, right? How do we make sure that,
You have them give you you check their revenues for their fees
Yeah.
every year.
it's just we
Easy.
recycle every 3
When
years?
you ask for budgets every year, you could ask for departmental revenue along with it. Then you see their expenses and their departmental
Absolutely.
revenue.
I think we need to
Every
do
single
that.
year.
I think
But you keep track, but it could be a request part of a submission.
Yeah, to report back to us
Yeah.
periodically.
I think we need to do that.
I mean, you
can
they're
see
making
by,
deposits.
They are.
Right.
you can see by what we've got there that's, down here on for each fiscal year, what we've been bringing in annually.
Right.
Yes.
But you could actually have your accountant do it. And
Right.
give your actual.
Right.
Yeah.
Budget to actual on those exact.
Yep.
I do that every year.
I
I do that every year for my departments when they went in.
Yeah, okay.
I move that the Conservation Commission Assistant be supported as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Nathan? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you.
Okay.
That's dangerous.
Aye.
Aye for aye. Okay, so that was unanimous. And I know Luke would have said aye. You've been here.
You think so? Huh?
Is it firm?
Any other information you would like from us that would make your job any easier?
Final
Or more
warrant.
difficult.
Final warrant
Or
amounts,
difficult?
right?
I just want to say that I'm disappointed in myself for changing my mind on
Yeah.
so many of these things. Just because we gave you a clear direction.
I-
And
Just
and
raised it
once again,
$25,000.
We're changing it, and so I just want to say I'm sorry about that.
Well, I mean,
You know, things have, people have come with arguments.
I think it's good to state goals at the beginning of the year versus
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
make
but they-
proclamations.
Yeah, I'm with
Because,
you.
I mean, a lot
and
a lot changes in the course of a budget cycle, and so, I think it's good to have those goals, but you also have to be flexible.
Open-minded.
Yeah.
and open-minded.
But-
We have brains, we should use them.
Yes, exactly. And I also think
Yeah,
that it
don't
was
sit by it
important
just
for us
because
to
you
kind
said
of
it, yeah,
just
that'd be good, whatever.
make a decision and make it tonight so that you could
Right.
move forward
I think that
now.
was the bigger thing.
So that you're not left with this wishy-washy, you still don't know, and we
Right.
still don't know.
Right.
So after,
That's-
at a certain point, you just have to say, okay, that's it.
Whatever way you want to do it, just.
Let's go.
let us know.
So there you are.
and thank you all for your work.
Did you guys opine on the warrant article for the tax deferral changes, tax deferral program changes?
No,
No,
we
that
haven't.
that wasn't a position.
That wasn't a
We'll-
position, but I
we'll do
don't,
that, but-
yeah,
We wouldn't, I don't think we would take a position on that.
you don't think you would take a position on it?
Well, we might,
Well, it
probably would.
raises the levy capacity, but
Yeah.
it also helps your elderly and your veterans.
I mean, it
so
does.
that's
It
up
helps
to
you,
you.
and-
If those are the ones that are having
Yeah, we would take- We
trouble,
would take a position on it, we would.
struggling to do it, and you wanna help them.
The committee has
then-
been supportive of this
Yeah.
in the past, like.
Same with the 500, if you have somebody that doesn't want to refine, but if you have somebody that truly is having a hard time paying taxes, you can give them another 500.
Yeah,
It's-
and it's not like we're
that's
giving
not
them,
a
we're
big
asking them to
number.
work for it, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
So it costs you, it's not, I mean, you add everybody's value a penny. Yeah,
Yeah.
Seriously.
No,
it's really pennies on the,
yeah, it is, so,
so.
I'll let you guys start the second half of your meeting now.
thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Bye.
What?
All right.
These are Priscilla's corrected spreadsheets.
Oh,
How's that going?
that's a waste of
Felt
paper.
bad that, was one number.
Priscilla's corrected spreadsheets.
Oh,
I
she
will
felt
take-
badly. Here we go, all right, we get rid of this one. Sorry for yawning.
All right. So as always, well, town government organization policy and bylaw review, draft sick leave policy. Tim?
This is- Well, I know that this is the first time you're seeing it, so we're certainly not asking you for a vote, but this is something we had started working with the personnel board a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I guess it really more accurately, it's a sick leave bank policy. It sets up a method by which employees can donate a sick day to a sick leave bank so that employees who are in need of additional sick leave could apply to that bank. And it'd be a three-person committee. The treasurer, accountant, and myself would decide on, the worthiness of the request, that it's not someone that's out of time for whatever reason, if there's really an illness or urgent need for the time. But similar to policies that other communities have. So I think it came up several weeks ago because we brought it back to this, meeting, the board to see.
I think it's,
Forget the context, but there was a discussion, I think, of.
Right.
in terms of benefits, I think it's an
Yeah.
important benefit to give that we can
Yep.
fairly easily give. It's
It's really
sort of a
not- no
long-term
cost.
disability with very little cost.
Yep.
I did have a question, though, on the second page about the fairness of the appeal. Because you have to appeal to the same people that you said, who said no. It seems to me an appeal should be able to be brought somewhere else. Or at least have one other person or two other, since it's a board of three, or at least have,
Right. we
so
could-
that is one thing that I would like you to kind of review.
Yeah, we'll take another look at that. You're right, it should be a different body or
Well, or just.
individual, someone that can break the tie or.
There's some, yes, well, it won't be a tie if you got three people,
Well,
but,
it's just three, yeah.
but I think this should
Another
still
set
have
of eyes
a
to
better,
look at
appeal process.
Okay.
And then there were a couple of, typos,
Okay.
on the second page, and I'll just give them to you.
Yeah,
There
you
was,
said those.
this will not reflect favorably on the, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Would you be able to send this in Word format?
Sure,
Because
yep,
the packet just comes in PDF, so we can't comment on it as easy.
I can do that, I can send it to
Ah.
everybody, and you can,
You can?
submit it.
Okay, so,
I've got a PDF that you can change PDF.
yeah, should I give this to you or to, Jen, for the,
Probably the general, I'll send it to everybody in Word so you can,
okay,
That way
But-
you can see the track changes.
yeah.
And so if this were to be established, then existing employees would have a one-time option to join it, non-union?
right, non-union employees.
I mean, it says you only have the first 30 days after hire, so you just do something to allow the
Well,
current,
to allow it, yeah, first time.
everybody
set the
to
bank up.
have a chance to
Yeah.
join it.
Yeah,
And then thereon after, the policy would apply to new hires.
Right, and you would have
Okay.
had to have been part of it to take
Yeah.
advantage of it.
Yeah,
Okay, so
Jay.
we'll see that again.
Yes, we'll bring that back.
Great. The right to farm bylaw was passed last town meeting, and I assume that this policy is just to kind of,
Yeah, I think, we're required to display it prominently on the website as part of the passage of the bylaw. Actually, I think both policies, the right to farm and complete streets, I think actually it was David Friedman that pointed this out, that they ought to be, in the category of selectmen's policies.
okay.
And, you know, because now they're kind of standalones off in different areas.
Can we just,
And
But
is
if you could
this,
just vote to, yeah,
can
bring
we
them
just
into that.
vote to
well,
adopt
yeah, and
these?
this is the same as what was voted on at town meeting?
No, the policy is just this.
Oh,
This is,
oh,
that's the bylaw.
gotcha.
And
Oh,
then
that's,
the policy,
Where's the
is,
policy?
where's,
is ten, is.
Policy's on the
is
last
it
page.
Last page.
oh, okay,
Open up
gotcha.
by the- Yeah.
Okay, there's the, okay, got it.
So I think you could
That's
simply
the
vote to
complete
have it.
streets.
Yeah.
But the whole complete streets, I mean, that's something we've already read and reviewed, that would
You've
go in
already-
as is.
That's voted.
You've already voted it.
Well, we're talking about the right to farm one right now.
Right.
But that's just as was voted by town meeting.
Yeah. So, can I have a motion
What are we approving?
to adopt this policy statement, on the right to farm bylaw disclosure? Or
I move what she said.
429, and it should be redated, I don't know why it's to
11?
11, because this,
I think the 429 is when the town meeting was, right?
Yeah, that was-
that's, okay, you could,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you could,
Spring.
okay, you could leave that on there, but the date of adoption of this policy would be dated today.
A second?
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay, aye. Another policy, yay. And we don't have a complete street ones yet written?
Yeah. it's in there.
We do have the policy, the town board did vote the policy, I think it's on the complete streets page on the website.
We already voted it?
It's already voted.
Oh, okay, so then, I don't know why it's on the
I think
agenda,
David was
so.
saying it should be in the selectmen's policies section of the website. I think it,
Okay.
Okay.
Even though we've already voted on it, Barney has a really good point on the policy.
Yes.
of The bylaw.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if the language where it says the disclosure is to inform buyers, hold on a second. Or occupants that the property they're about to acquire or occupy lays within a town. Shouldn't it be lies within town?
I think properties lay,
I think you're right.
right, but I don't know.
No,
Written-
because the
I'm
property
going,
you're,
I'm going with the teacher.
you laid something down on the table, but you don't,
Information. All right,
lies within. Anyway, somebody should check that.
Yes.
Grammatic.
How about,
Is that your?
I think it was pulled right from the.
how about, is situated within a town, then we don't have the
There you
problem.
go.
Circumlocute. Okay, we've done the town administrator's report, liaison reports.
Before we do that, can I go back to the town meeting warrant for just a minute?
Sure.
And this is not about anything that's specifically on it, but, I'm not as up to date as you all are about the process of, sort of communicating and engaging and, spreading information to the town about what's gonna be on the warrant. But I would like to encourage us to think about, doing more than I've experienced as a resident in the past particularly around those articles that may, generate a lot more discussion, pro and con, that we, really think strategically about the hearings that should happen and make sure those are well publicized, that we involve the mosquito. We maybe want to consider a town mailer, I think we should think about our website, what we can do with the website, and also all of the various networks that are connected to town hall, RecCom, COA, schools, so I don't know where that conversation can take place, but I think, I really feel strongly that we should try to do a better job so that we try to minimize the number of people that, get up at town meeting that say, I had no idea about this, or I don't understand this, like, the whole mess with the marijuana, bylaws. Anyway, I want to put that out there. And the second thing that's related to it, but it's different, is to really think about the warrant book. And my understanding is that, Tim, that it's really you and Wayne that put it together.
Yes.
And I think we need to do a much better job on not just listing the warrant article and having the language there, but providing some kind of description. And I know you have to be careful about how you do that, so it's completely neutral, but I think we need to offer that. And I would even go so far as to say, if there was a way to even just try out on a couple of the articles, the voting no means this, voting yes means this, in the way that you get, the state guideline, whatever they call that, the book from the state around a state election. I just think we can do a much better job of informing people about what their vote means in advance.
Yeah, Kate had mentioned that earlier today, and what we've been doing is putting article summaries. We've been publishing those with the motion handout that people
Right.
get at town meeting.
Right.
And in thinking about it, that might be a little too late in the game. Maybe we
Yes.
should put the article summaries with the warrant, because so people have time to think about it before they get there and
Yeah,
are asked to,
yeah.
or maybe it should be in both places, but that's a good suggestion, I think.
And I did talk to Wayne about it briefly, and he's very supportive.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure it would
I
be.
think, I'm totally supportive of it. I
Yeah.
think the one thing it also does is it forces us to have things kind of wrapped up a little bit earlier, because now we say, well, we can just have a handout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
But this really forces us to try to get that warrant book to be final,
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is.
good. I think we're all in agreement.
Which I think is
Yep.
already gonna be hard for this year.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
we've already talked about, I mean,
Yeah,
our last meeting, we talked about something that was gonna have to be on the table, right? I forget what it was.
well, we're looking to finalize it
Deer
by
count.
the 10th.
Dear So how do we, so what's the way, I'm happy to help in any way on this too. How do we lay out, how do we lay out a plan for general communication? And then how do we identify some of the key articles or key conversations we think are gonna come up, and how to provide more information in advance for people to think about?
I think actually last year, for the first time, it occurred to me, instead of trying to write all these summaries myself, I asked a lot of the article sponsors to send me
That would be a good
Yeah, that'd be
idea.
good.
blurb about what they were asking for and why,
Yeah.
which worked very well, so.
Yes, why don't we do
I think
that
that's-
now?
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's
At least alert
good
them that
idea.
they'll be asked for that, and that they'll have
a
to have it
summary
by,
of it. Well, they ought to be
March
able to
10th.
put a summary together of why they're asking for,
right.
X number of dollars or
You know what
whatever.
the cons are, it's gonna cost you more money.
I would
Yeah.
say you wanna either limit it in a number of words,
Yeah.
or
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
some people are more verbose than others.
well, we might,
Well, use,
Edit
and use
some
the,
of
use
it,
the
but-
kind of guide that comes out with the state
right.
ballots that do a nice job of that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
500 words?
Let's-
Well, it depends on the question too,
Yes.
whether,
Yeah.
500
Yes.
is enough
Yeah,
or not.
marijuana should be 19,000.
And one.
Well, and on that
Okay.
one, honestly, I would really like to see either you, Tim, or Wayne work with the folks that are gonna present that.
Mhm.
Because
Okay.
that was a disaster last year. It was
Oh,
so,
marijuana, yeah.
yeah,
that
it was so
that very
confusing,
confusing.
to everybody. I mean, even people that were
Even
trying
the
to
people
follow
that,
it.
well, I think
Yeah.
even the
They
people that
gave
were
up trying to
presented were
understand it.
presenting
Yeah.
it
I
were
thought I
confused,
understood it
which
when
is why I
went in,
was
by the time I
confused.
came out, I knew I didn't.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
that kind of, well, it leads into, I don't want to steal your thunder.
No,
but
go
you've got
ahead.
an
Go, go,
idea
go.
About, some of these bylaws that require more time and effort and thought, that maybe that
I'm
those should
still
be.
pushing for
at
a fall town meeting.
Yes, yeah.
Because, I think people, I think they'll make this deadline for the spring, for the marijuana, for instance, but I think it'll be they'll be under pressure. And then I think there's a bunch of other bylaws that we would like to come forward with, because we are doing a review of our policies and our bylaws and, you know, as we've been going along, and there's too many of them to put onto this, and it's too late already, you know, because if you start, you know, for this town meeting, but it would be sad to kind of stop, because, you know, what happens is if you say, okay, well, we didn't make it for this meeting, so we'll do it next meeting, and then all work stops.
Right.
And then you get up to December
Right.
of the next year, and it's too late again, you know, because you don't know what you want to do. So I guess I am still advocating for a fall town meeting to deal with bylaw changes.
I support that. I also, as I've said before, I think we're gonna have master plan things to look at. I don't, you know, we'll have to see what comes out of it and how quickly it can be turned around, but, and then also, you know, Conscom has their bylaw changes, and, who else came to us and said they wouldn't be ready? They'd be ready if we did a fall one. Somebody else.
Yes,
Forgot
they
who it
did.
was. Was it the planning board?
Because it was the scenic road that they really weren't sure about yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was-
well.
Yeah.
It was planning board, there were several.
Yeah, they're gonna be ready, I mean, I
Anyway.
did talk to Madeline, and she said, no, we're going to be ready with the, you know, marijuana ones. But I said, but if it were in fall, would you be readier? You know,
Right.
And she said, yeah, so.
More ready.
I'm more
Yeah.
ready, and she said, yes, but she wants to keep,
Stay on this
stay on
schedule.
this at this point, but I think they would also, you know, welcome being able to do it in the fall if we ask them to. But I think we need to make a decision, you know, stop talking about it and either just make the decision, one way or the other, so that people know how to act. And so we know how to act, for that matter. So, do you want to put it on the next agenda where we decide yes or no?
Sure, why not?
And then you would just think about it and kind of be ready to make a decision, and please, you
Tim,
know.
do you think you'd be able to put together at least a rough idea of what might be on that fall meeting?
Sure, I could do that. I'll have a
Okay.
draft warrant with as many of the summaries as we can come up with for next time. And then maybe a second warrant of what might be on the fall town meeting, if there were one.
Yeah,
I'm thinking most of the bylaw type stuff.
yes,
Keep the financial stuff to the annual town meeting.
Right.
mostly.
yeah, you have to do it in April for the financial stuff because you're
Yeah.
of the
Right.
fiscal year. But the other stuff could really wait and maybe even be better done if they were weighted, you know.
I just worry about quorums.
I understand.
I worry about a
Quorums.
quorum
Yeah, that's the only thing.
with the exciting bylaw.
But this might be a good
Yeah.
year to
Well,
do it. If we have the master plan, I think people will turn out.
If
You
it-
can
well,
never try.
Certainly if
No
that's
problem with
ready,
the
but I wonder if the master plan will be ready by then.
Well, that's what will, the consulting firm is committed to producing, their draft is gonna come to us in July. There's time to look it over, you know, make revision, et cetera, and then it's supposed to be done in September, including action steps, near term, and sort of longer term, it's more, guidelines.
Yeah, but then you want hearings and things after that.
I don't know, it depends on, given how much public, input there's
Well,
been
you
so
still, they
far.
want, but the public input is all over the place. You don't know what's gonna come up.
But it's gonna,
And you wanna
it's
see what,
starting to
you wanna
be-
see what the recommendations are
Right,
and be able to discuss those.
well, we're gonna
Yeah.
see those in June, at that June public meeting.
The public will?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. But there may need to be more,
Yeah, okay.
you know.
Again, we can always cancel a meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah, but I'd rather not do it in a hurry, because then, you know, you kind of feel like it catches you
Yeah,
flat-footed,
yeah.
and, it's not good planning.
So speaking of being
yes.
caught flat-footed, I just realized that we started a conversation with FinCom about our need to meet with them prior to March 10th.
Yeah.
And we all agreed, but we didn't actually pick a
Confirm
date.
anything, yeah.
Oh,
I
well,
think
when
it
we're
was-
February, let me see.
It wasn't mostly about the
We thought
COLA
maybe it had to be
recommendation?
Yeah,
an
I thought we, I
extra-
thought we
No,
covered all the things
we-
they wanted to talk
Well,
about.
No, no, because we're gonna be closing the warrant on the 10th, so we should sit down with them before and go
About
through
the
what the
warrants.
budget's gonna be,
Okay.
And the warrant, yes.
right?
I think Scott said they're meeting on the 24th.
We meet on the
Right.
Victor,
25th.
if we
And
can-
when do you leave town?
We'll get on there,
I leave on the 26th.
Do like a working session or something on the night before?
the night before they meet.
They meet on Monday, the 24th, and then you meet on the 25th, or, you know, either they could come to that one, or.
Yeah, he was saying
Yeah.
that they weren't gonna be ready for the 25th.
Right,
Oh, okay.
Right.
So it's gotta be
May not
between,
want
so it's gotta
us-
be between the 24th and the 10th.
right.
Okay, maybe the
Right.
first week
So
of
we'll need,
March.
so we'll need a special meeting.
Okay, I
Right.
will not be there, because I will be in Tasmania.
Okay.
So that would be the third.
Skype.
I'll Skype in.
Yeah.
I
Of course,
will have,
of course, it'll be 2:00 in the morning.
oh,
Right.
well,
No,
we'll see,
don't worry about it.
we'll see.
Does March 3rd work?
What day of the week is that?
It's a Tuesday, we don't have 4,000 just like we do.
Day after my birthday.
No, it's the third Tuesday of the month, yeah.
So I mean, we'd have to check with FinCom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Would you mind?
March 3rd is the presidential primary.
Oh,
March
you're right.
3rd is a presidential
Oh,
primary.
I
I'm
don't
voting
think you
early.
can have a-
Yeah,
Voting,
that's-
early voting starts on the 24th.
I don't think you can have a public meeting.
No.
Oh, yeah, you
voting
can't,
day.
right.
But maybe
Doesn't have
another
to be a
another day
Tuesday.
that week, yeah,
What
yeah.
about the 4th?
Works for me, so far.
All right, I'll contact Victor
I
and,
think either the 2nd or the 4th work for me, maybe we give them both days?
Yeah.
which 2 days?
Second and the fourth.
Second and fourth, okay.
March 2 is
That
Monday.
is Eastern Orthodox Lent.
What, the 2nd?
2,
Yeah.
March 4.
It's my birthday.
Now, oh wait, you know what, March
Eastern
4 is
Orthodox
the
Lent.
master plan public meeting, so I have to be at that.
We don't want to take away.
It would be
Yeah.
better if it could be on Monday, the 2nd. A lot better.
Let's propose that, see what,
Could it be, would it work on the 5th too, just so we can give them 2 dates?
works okay for me.
Yep, I could do that.
So the 2nd and the 5th?
Does that
Okay.
work for you, Tim? 2nd and 5th?
I believe it does, but I'll
Okay,
run those dates by them.
okay. Great. Good thinking,
Wait for
Nathan.
minutes?
Yeah. Will we
Yeah.
have any liaison reports? I kind of jumped in there, but
No, I think, you know, they can wait, unless there's something really important, that couldn't wait. Minutes. Minutes of, did I already take them out? I did,
You want those?
so I just want the date.
I move that we approve the
Okay.
minutes of Tuesday, January 28th, 2020.
As amended.
Oh, well, I don't know which version he's read.
Oh,
yeah.
oh, okay, you got the current one?
Yeah, they were all in the updated ones with
All right.
the ones in yours.
Okay, good.
And then I wanted you to check on page 3 though, because I wasn't sure if I quoted it right about
Oh.
paying the fees.
For the conscom?
I think yours is state.
Mine. Yeah, and then I. Yes. Okay.
It's okay to me.
Yeah, well, fine to me. So, you have a motion on the.
Second.
As is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, done.
Move adjournment.
Is there a
And
second?
we move, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.